Somewhere beyond the recesses of time and space, two podcasters are set adrift in a machine, picking up transmissions of movies that are forgotten but not gone.
You're going on a journey through memory.
Fuck you.
Your destination, a place and time you've been before. To reach it, all you have to do is follow my voice. And who am I? I am your host, Landen Solano, joined always by my co-host, Truman Caps. Truman, it's good to remember you.
Landen, it's good to be remembered by you. It feels like a pearl, a perfect, beautiful pearl on the necklace of our consciousness. But that necklace is surrounded by the clam of memory. And that clam is submerged in the ocean of love. And as the water level of the ocean rises, it washes away all of our podcasts. And ladies and gentlemen, if you have not seen the movie Reminiscence, you are confused. And if, like us, you've seen the movie Reminiscence, you are still confused.
Man, oh man, this movie really broke me in a way that no other movie has before. I can't wait to get into it with you, but I have a piercing question that I have to ask you to start us off.
Okay, sure. Is it about Orpheus and Eurydice? Because if you want me to tell you that story, I will not.
No. Here's my question. How long do you think Hugh Jackman can hold his breath?
Now, his character in the movie or Hugh Jackman in real life?
Hugh Jackman in real life. Because I have a theory that he can hold it longer than anyone else in Hollywood, and that's why filmmakers are always putting him underwater.
I mean, I feel like Hugh Jackman is capable of physical feats, the likes of which few people are. I remember the intro to the Tonys that he hosted probably 10 years ago. It was this big one-take thing of him starting outside Radio City Music Hall and just with his legs tightly together, hopping up and down all the way in time with the music, all the way into Radio City, up onto the stage. Like, the dude's calves must be, like, more... Like, you could build the black box for an airplane out of Hugh Jackman's calves. That's how toned they are.
Was he singing at the same time?
I think he was singing some. I think... So, I mean, again, that's the breath control.
There you go. It's the lung capacity. I mean, listen, famously... maybe most famously, he has been submerged underwater, I think, in every single Wolverine film.
Okay.
He's in his little Weapon X tank.
Yeah.
Another famous one, The Prestige.
Yeah.
Let's not spoil the end of that, but, spoiler alert, he's in water.
a lot of times.
I seem to remember... There's a moment in Prisoners when he submerges his face underwater. I could be making this up at this point, but just to kind of like shake off the dirty remorse he's feeling for beating the shit out of Paul Dano.
Yeah, I'm trying to think here. I mean, is there any chance that he's underwater in Missing Link? Could that happen?
Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, as a voice actor, if your animated character is flushed away.
Oh, flushed away, exactly.
Sorry.
I mean, the fountain, probably also a thing. I mean,
submerged under the weight of generations of life.
I mean, aren't we all holding our breaths underneath that particular ocean? I mean, look, I've not seen Swordfish, but the swordfish...
It's aquatic titled.
They live underwater, that's all I'm saying. Yeah, I don't know. So I don't know how long he can hold his breath, but I mean, probably 3-4 minutes. Why not?
Holy
right?
Shit, that's a long time.
It seems to. Well, I mean, he holds his breath for like the entire third act of this film, basically. In an extended underwater fight scene. I think that people who write underwater fight scenes take such a optimistic view of human lung capacity. I remember in Skyfall, James Bond fights a guy underwater for so long. And it's not like just holding your breath, but you're underwater, you're exerting yourself, and you're like punching and swimming, and that is burning oxygen.
They probably cut a scene with Q giving him some sort of like oxygen pill. Swallow this and you get an extra 5 minutes of like oxygen. You know, it turns the carbon monoxide in your lungs to oxygen so you can stay underwater longer. Gives a shot of adrenaline to all your muscles so you can move faster underwater.
Q, are there any side effects? Nope, none. Just go for it. It's totally fine.
So, I guess, yeah, all of this to say that today the machine has made us watch Reminiscence from 2021. Truman, do you want to, and I'm going to pay so close attention to every single word you say here, tell us what happened in this film, because, man oh man, it has eluded me.
What happened in this film was I struggled very hard to focus on it, but I put this together for you, and hopefully you can follow it better than I did the movie. In a futuristic flooded Miami, war veteran Nick Bannister, played by Hugh Jackman, and his business partner Watts, played by Thandiwe Newton, run a business where patrons can relive fond memories. The process, called Reminiscence, is accomplished using a large machine that projects the unconscious client's memories as Bannister guides them with a series of verbal prompts. Bannister falls hard for one of his clients, May, played by Rebecca Ferguson, a beautiful nightclub singer who hires him to search her memories for her lost keys. After a brief, passionate relationship, May disappears, and a despondent Bannister begins obsessively reliving his memories of her to discover clues about who she was and where she went. His investigation leads him from the depths of Miami's criminal underworld to the gilded halls of a wealthy property tycoon's estate as he slowly uncovers May's sad and sordid past as a drug addict with ties to the mob.
Okay.
Landen is rubbing his face. We are 7 minutes in and we have achieved face rub.
First of all, I don't want to be these like, you know, this sort of person, but there was such a news story about this, and you're the editor, you can edit this out and just correct yourself if you want to, but this is the first film that Thandiwe Newton uses she said that when she first started in Hollywood, they left the W out of her name, and she just went with it, but once she discovered the actual root of her name and the pride that comes behind it, she adopted it. And this is the first film that she put the W back in there. So it used to be Tandy Newton, now it's Thandiwe Newton.
Okay, and you see, I looked up phonetic pronunciation because I was dead set on getting this right on the podcast and not looking like a total idiot. And the one that I saw said it was Thandiwe, so I was like, okay, well, that's what I'll do. Thandiwe. Well, great.
I'm going off of an IMDb trivia, so I mean, or maybe it was Wikipedia. I don't know, but I saw a phonetic spelling of it. I want to also get it right. We both have good intentions here, and we just got one of us has misinformation.
Well, one of us does. Which one is it? We may never know. Fortunately, Thandiwe Newton is a huge fan of our podcast, so she can write in and let us know.
I didn't want to be those kind of unaware white podcasters.
No, we are. I mean, so only one of us is an unaware white podcaster. We're just unaware of which one it is. Okay, but Reminiscence, won't you? A movie, some might say.
Do I have to?
No, I tried not to as I was watching it.
So I'm just gonna run down as you went through all the cast and stuff. I'll just kind of want to reiterate who's in this.
Yeah.
This was written and directed by Lisa Joy off her own script that was on the blacklist.
I have thoughts about it. Blacklist script. We should just, at some point, we should just make this podcast about blacklist scripts, because it seems like we kind of basically are doing that already.
Yeah, I think the Venn diagram overlap is just mostly 100%.
It's a slightly lumpy circle.
Yeah.
Barnyard, I'm pretty sure wasn't on the blacklist. Because
we don't know that.
Hollywood doesn't appreciate movies about rowdy cows.
Okay, this, as you said, stars Hugh Jackman, Rebecca Ferguson, Thandiwe Newton, Cliff Curtis, and Daniel Liu, among others. So let's go into some specs about this before we throw down our personal reflections.
Yes.
This movie was released on August 20th, 2021. Truman, what do you remember about that time and place?
I would say just internal screaming, just like kind of piercing, all-consuming, pain and darkness and ennui. Welcome to our comedy podcast. Yeah, I don't know. I think mainly a strong sense of like, I thought this shit was supposed to be over by now was what was really going on then.
And talking about COVID specifically.
Yeah. If that wasn't already clear. I mean, I think my personal life was honestly going pretty well, but external factors were making it difficult for me to be happy.
Yeah. Well, COVID, I think, is important to be bringing into the conversation about why this film was forgotten. But there might be a little twist on that by the end of this. But August 20th was, in 2021, was an interesting time because things were opening already. I had already started going back to the theater at this point. Just a trip down COVID memory lane.
This will be fun. We're going to love this.
I had pre-ordered my tickets to see A Quiet Place Part 2. And it was the first film that I, got a refund on my tickets and said, I'm not going to the theater to see that. So they delayed the theatrical release of that movie until the summer of 2021, and I thought, well, what better way to get back into going to the movies than going to see the movie I was supposed to next see in the theater. And I think that was in July, like maybe early July.
Yeah. So
this is like a month and a half into the reopening movie theaters. I mean, movie theaters were open throughout, as we'll see, but
they were like, hey everybody, it's been a while. Come back to the movies. Do you remember what movies are like? Reminiscence. That's what they're like. They've always been like this. Aren't you excited to be back at the theater?
Well, okay, I'm getting a little into my personal reflections at this point, which I'll save. Let me earmark that and I'll come back. So, released on August 20th, 2021 by Warner Brothers to, you want to guess how many theaters?
I don't know. Is this like a 15 hundo?
Now, what are you basing that on? Just like slowly reopening after COVID, or what?
It's slowly reopening after COVID, and like this is not based on an existing property.
Yeah,
and so there's not like a built-in audience that they're gunning for, and it's a kind of moody, weird movie that is sort of an action movie, but not really.
I have so many comments about that particular sentiment. Would it shock you to learn that this movie was released to 3,265 theaters?
Yes, Landon, it would shock me. And what you're hearing right now is the sound of a man who is shocked. That is a lot of theaters playing this movie. That is a lot of Hugh Jackman's voiceover echoing in a mostly empty theater while the one person there coughs disconcertingly.
Well, you're not far off on that because this movie debuted at number 9.
Ooh, even for us, that's bad.
So this might be the most amount of theaters we've covered. Actually, I think one of them had 3,300. But this is top tier amount of theaters that we've covered for any of our films so far, and maybe the lowest. I think Simone was number 8 in the box office. So
wait,
this is down there with the lowest box office that we have.
Oh man. It's interesting that Simone beat this movie, given that Reminiscence is the closest thing to a film directed by Victor Turansky that we have covered yet. Go on.
I want to run down just a trip down COVID memory lane again. What movies were in the theater? I'm going to go through the whole top 10 box office of the weekend of August 20th, 2021.
Yeah.
You ready for this?
I'm so ready.
Okay. In its second week, it's still number 1. The Deadpool to the Wolverine, Ryan Reynolds' Free Guy.
Yeah.
Which I saw in the theater and hated. I don't know that I hated it as much as I hated this movie.
I mean, look, I again respect you venturing out and risking your health for Free Guy. That was
agreed.
That's a real commitment to the movies.
I figured, I was unemployed at this time, so going to a matinee on a Tuesday afternoon felt pretty safe. But
yeah, not bad. The biggest danger to you was the brain cells that might die watching Free Guy,
and a lot of them did. Number 2, new as of August 20th, Paw Patrol the movie.
Ah, yes. I don't have a lot of Paw Patrol bits.
The padded silence of two non-parent podcasters.
Listen, one of my friends wrote for the Paw Patrol knockoff Puppy Dog Pals. I have a lot of thoughts about Puppy Dog Pals, but I got nothing for you on Paw Patrol.
Very good, and I would be suspicious if you did. All right, coming in at number 3 in its 4th week, Jungle Cruise with Emily Blunt and The Rock and Paul Giamatti.
Wait, I'm sorry. I feel like you've told me multiple times that Paul Giamatti was in Jungle Cruise, and I keep forgetting that. You're kind of my source for Paul Giamatti facts, honestly. We talk about Giamatti a lot.
What can I say? I'm jihadi for Giamatti.
I'm sorry. You know what? No, continue, please.
Coming in at number 4 in its 3rd week is Don't Breathe 2. A cult, horror thriller thing. Not
also,
particularly my brand of horror, but
also an interesting movie to release during a respiratory pandemic. But hey, you go.
Yes. The coming in at number 5 in its 5th week, the Aretha Franklin biopic Respect, starring Jennifer Hudson. Number 6 in its 6th week is The Suicide Squad.
Oh, the James Gunn one, the good one. Yeah.
Air quotes
well,
on it. But I'm not gonna get people all
John Cena is funny. I don't know.
Yeah,
I like him.
It is whatever. Number 7, The Protege with Michael Keaton, Sam Jackson, and I want to say Maggie Q. Nope.
Wow. I feel I can hear the machine's gears whirring into action as it prepares to serve us this movie with A-list talent that I have never heard of.
Yeah, it is Maggie Q.
Huh.
Yeah, that's new this week. The movie I went to see in the opening weekend on August 20th, The Night House, a horror film really directed my tastes, starring Rebecca Hall. Then number 9, new this week, Reminiscence, followed and finished up in the 10th place in its 7th week, M. Night Shyamalan's Old.
Oh, no, now I do remember what I was doing in August of 2021. I was making a lot of jokes about the beach that makes you old. That was a fun month or two on Twitter.
All right, we went through all that, but get this. It stays in theaters. Reminiscence stays in theaters for 6 weeks, despite falling off the top 10 in its 2nd week, which it fell to 11th, and then just completely slipped into obscurity from there.
There was just nothing else to put in the theaters. It was just like Reminiscence was just a screensaver that was on in these theaters.
Yeah, I'm surprised Gremlins didn't do better than Reminiscence at this point in the box office. Just from repertory houses.
You've alluded to that a couple times. Does Gremlins have like a Rocky Horror thing where it's always playing every week? Is somewhere in America?
I should actually look this up so I have like the numbers to back it up. But I seem to remember that during the pandemic, their drive-ins were the only things that were generating box office, and that there was a point at which Gremlins was in the top 10 during that time. So
a beautiful moment in an otherwise very dark period. I mean, I'm trying to think of how Hugh Jackman as Nick Bannister would describe that. Kind of like it's a shame I already used pearl and the clam tortured metaphor, because he probably would call on that as part of a page-long
I'm sure he does
monologue.
that for everything.
This taquito is like a crispy secret wrapped around a juicy carne asada memory covered in a secret sauce of ennui.
Let's go through some of the dollars here, dollars and cents, because this is baffling. Not baffling. This is just pitiful. Okay. I say pitiful. I'm not trying to lay this at the feet of anybody, but okay. This had a pretty modest budget. This could have been a bloated piece of shit, and it's only $68 million.
Only a tight $68 million.
Well, when everything is over $100 million, that's a modest budget for 2021.
Look, all the Hope Springs people are looking at this and just cackling and shaking their heads. They spent a tight 30 and made $100 million.
Well, yes, because on a $68 million budget, not including marketing expenses, this made domestically, $4 million.
Oh.
Internationally, this made $11.5 million.
Sends a chill right down my spine.
For a total of just under $15.5 million.
You know what? I'm going to say... Well, here's what I'm going to say. Good. Never make a movie like this again, Hollywood. I hope you learned your lesson.
Oh, okay.
Never.
Oh I'm...
Let this be a warning.
Well, listen, I'm struggling here because this is challenging. I guess I'll get this out right up front because I don't want to say that. I don't want to be that like vitriolic about a movie that isn't, as you said, based on an IP.
Sure.
It's written and directed by a woman. This should have some merit to it. But if you're being fair and you take it completely in its own right on its, the text that you have in front of you, it's truly, utterly awful.
And look, Landon, I'm going to rise and make a brave statement.
Okay.
I think that women can make shitty movies. They can write bad scripts and direct shitty movies. I think that women are just as capable of making shitty movies as men are.
Agreed.
This is a great example. I don't want to be too vitriolic either, because this is but then I'm torn by the fact that I basically am going to be. This is a movie this is a singular artistic vision in a way that I think not really a lot of our other movies have been. This is a script that was
except for maybe Simone.
Okay, yes, possibly Simone. And the person who wrote and directed this movie did not then go on to marry the star of it, so maybe not quite as densely tied as Simone is. But no, this is a script that was well regarded in the industry. I am curious about why. And was then this Lisa Joy was able to direct her movie and shepherd that vision through. And so I don't want she had
the fact that any movie exists is a small miracle.
Sure, yeah. And I think that also, so Lisa Joy, I think we're just like dipping our toe into this already. It's worth noting, Lisa Joy has a history as a writer. She came up in TV. She wrote for a TV series called Pushing Daisies. That was her first job. Pushing Daisies was a great show that was canceled way too soon. She also
3 episodes of that.
She worked on that. That was her first job in the industry. She came out of working in law. She was a consultant at McKinsey. And when she was called and was told, hey, basically you need to be in LA tomorrow. You got a job on Pushing Daisies. And she walked away from her entire corporate career to go start this, which is awesome. That's cool. I mean, that's a bold leap. She then went on to work on Burn Notice. She was the only woman in the writer's room on Burn Notice. That must have been a trip. I'm going to say also, Burn Notice...
Credited with 4 episodes.
Burn Notice, for what it is, pretty good show. I watched a lot of that with my dad. I don't know, it's a good show. It's a good show to watch with your dad.
I got no complaints about Burn Notice.
I am not mad about Burn Notice. And she and her husband Jonathan Nolan, who is the brother of Christopher Nolan, created the show Westworld. Lisa Joy and Jonathan Nolan wrote the pilot for Westworld together. I think the pilot I feel like the pilot for Westworld is really, really good. The rest of Westworld, I react to about like I react to Reminiscence. There might be a connection there. And then she also she and Jonathan Nolan executive produced the new Fallout TV series, which as a gigantic fan of the Fallout series, I cackle and drool when I think about that show. It is so good. It is better than I think it's better than about half of the Fallout games that have been made.
Oh wow.
So
okay.
I don't want this to be a takedown of Lisa Joy, even though I am going to be talking in a very critical fashion about a lot of choices she made as a writer here. And I also want to say, I recognize it's bullshit, because if you look up Lisa Joy on IMDb and Truman Caps on IMDb and put them next to each other, one of those pages is going to look a lot cooler than the other one. So what do I know? What do I know?
What do you know? And I'll just add to that bio, she's a multi-hyphenate, which I think is really cool. In addition to being a writer and having her hand in the writer's room of all 36 episodes of Westworld, you said she was a producer of, in her own right, but she also produced 15 episodes of Burn Notice, every episode of Westworld, this film, And then she only has the 2 directing credits, which is Westworld in this film. So
Yes.
and those are, for whatever spicy opinions you have about Westworld, that is still prestige TV.
Yeah. No, it is. Look, it's TV that is very glossy and it has a lot of visuals and that are striking, and a lot of things that and dialogue and lines that are meant to sound really profound, whether or not they actually make any sense. Conspicuous pause.
Jesus Christ. Your silences are like vacuums.
I know. That's getting close to a Nick Bannister monologue. Do you want to take that one a few orders of magnitude crazier? Do you want to talk for another 5 minutes?
No. I want to know where this movie was on your awareness radar when it came out in 2021.
I remember the poster. I remember reading or seeing allusions to a kind of post-apocalyptic noir movie, which piqued my interest a little bit. I think I saw a poster for it, and then, but pretty soon thereafter, I got this movie mixed up in my head with Geostorm, and I came to believe that it was because Geostorm, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't that the movie that was financed by Chinese backers, and it was and I think a Chinese production company made it and wrote the script and everything, but they just hired John Cusack or a few other American actors to be in it. I just somehow, I think maybe because it's sort of about climate disasters, and I think the poster to it is also a man standing on a flooded street, maybe. And Hugh,
not just any man, Nick Bannister.
Yeah, yes, exactly. A street is like a portal into the time hole of our minds, and the water is like our brain cells dying as we continue to listen to me talk. So yes, my strongest association was mistaking it for another movie. What about you?
So I think I had this on my list of I want to get to the theater and see that. I was on so as I said, I earmarked my personal reflections. I had such a crazy emotional reaction to being back in the theater when I saw A Quiet Place Part 2, a movie that I cannot be objective about just because of how biased I am with that experience.
Sure.
And so I'm I just want to go see every single film that I have a modicum of interest in the theater. But this was also that year where Warner Brothers decided to co-release its films on Max, or at the time HBO Max.
Yeah.
And so Matrix Revelations?
I think so. Yeah, sure.
They had a number of them. Most of them are forgotten, actually. What was that Denzel Washington, Jared Leto movie, and the Angelina Jolie one with the fire?
This is all despair. The kind of difficult thing with the notion of our podcast is that as more and more movies get completely cannibalized by streaming services, it's easier and easier to forget them.
Yeah. But they were all co-released in the theater and at home, and I think at a certain point, I was just oh, well, I could go to the theater, but I've been 3 times this week. I saw Free Guy. I saw Night House. Maybe I'll just go. Maybe I'll just catch this, on a Friday night.
Yeah.
And so I did see this before.
Okay. Oh, so in the full-on theaters you saw this?
No. I saw this at home. I decided to watch this on Max when it was first released.
Okay. So what do you remember from seeing it the first time?
Nothing. I remember absolutely 0 things from it.
Do you remember your eyes being open the entire time that the movie was playing?
Okay, well,
now be
honest.
honest.
Not to spoil my current experience. So, and I honestly, I'll admit, I have no excuse for not remembering it. However, I did forget it. This time, while watching it, I fell asleep. And trying to rewatch it, and I'm okay. Gotta not watch this when I haven't had my coffee or at a precarious time of day. So I tried it again in different circumstances. I made it maybe 20 minutes further and then fell asleep again.
Yep.
And so I'm motherfucker, I have to it became homework. And so I'm like, I am going to tackle this. This film is not going to beat me. I am going to win this fight.
You've got you're brewing up some of the strongest Colombian roast coffee in the world. You've got a pack of caffeine gum. You're handing a $20 bill to a trucker for a little baggie full of speed. You are going to watch Reminiscence and not fall asleep.
Well, part of it is that this poetic VO is just I can't, it like lulls me to sleep.
It's so bad.
Like I've mentioned before, I can't really focus or remember lyrics or poetry. So this sort of VO is just like, you might as well be reading off a menu. I have no fucking idea what you're saying. So this time when I watched it, I'm like, okay, I'm putting my phone on the other side of the room so I have no distractions. I'm taking notes with a pen and paper. I'm going to shut all the blinds. I'm going to have no lights, no distractions. I'm turning the subtitles on so that I can read the words that are being spoken.
You're jamming yourself in the leg with a fork to stay awake again and again. You've got the Clockwork Orange things holding your eyes open.
I got about halfway through it doing that, and then I was like, it's trying my patience so much that I have to break this into 2 sessions.
Yeah.
And so I came back to it the next day, again, just like, okay, what do I have to do to just focus my attention on this movie? And so I decided to put it on while I was cycling at home. I've got the little ledge to put my iPad on, and I'm like, okay, this is good. I'll just pour my frustration of this movie into a deeper workout.
You rode your stationary bike straight through the wall. You were pedaling so hard.
So that's, oh man, and my legs were tired after the second viewing of this, or the second half of this, because I was just like, the ending of this movie. Once a movie loses you, or loses me, then like I become all the more critical of it throughout, and it becomes much more of an endurance test. And then when you get something like this that doesn't know how to end, I want to do violence.
Yes. Do you think, since we're kind of touching on the vibe of this movie or the way that this movie speaks to us, what do you say we give the viewers, and by that I mean the listeners, a little taste of of the dialogue in this movie, so they kind of get a sense for just what every scene feels like?
All right, yeah, let's do that, and then I've got questions that I need answered for this story, but okay, go ahead.
All right,
what are we doing here? You guide me through. Be my Sherpa.
Okay, be your Nick Bannister. So I'm just going to have the machine put on some kind of appropriately moody sci-fi noir music in the background. Let's just get that queued up. All right, so let's just go back and forth reading some of the monologues from this movie.
Okay.
I'm gonna start. These are the first words that we hear delivered as voiceover from Hugh Jackman as we see a sweeping overhead shot of flooded Miami. The past is just a series of moments, each one perfect, complete. What? A bead on the necklace of time. The past doesn't haunt us, wouldn't even recognize us. If there are ghosts to be found, it's us who haunt the past. We haunt it so we can look again, see the people we miss, and the things we missed about them.
That is unintelligible bullshit. The past won't recognize us. What the fuck does that mean?
What the fuck does that mean is really an evergreen statement for this entire movie. Here, Landon, you do one. If you got a favorite, here, do a selection from Reminiscence for this, your audition for the play. I'm bringing in a scene from Reminiscence.
Yeah, I'll do a monologue from the bad guy that I don't like how it's written, but I like the premise he's setting up. Could have been a better film had they explored it better, but so I just want to preface by saying I really enjoy the idea behind this. What he's saying just is nonsense, but Here we go. When the waves came, they washed away our lives, revealed what this world has always been. A wilderness with one rule: survive or die. A place like that is beyond good and evil. The only sin left is self-deception, telling yourself that you're better than everyone else. You deserve to be standing while everyone else sinks. I've never labored under that delusion.
Ooh, chills. Chills. Ooh. Let me hit you back. This is kind of more romance focused. This is by Rebecca Ferguson, the romantic lead. So stupid of me to think falling in love could save me. People like you and me don't fall in love. We plummet to deep, dark places. Love is the thing we climb to. Rung after rung, we pull ourselves out of ourselves, reaching for something greater. If we could just hold on. I wish I could have held on longer. So the whole movie is that. Every scene in this hour and 55-minute long movie is that. So if we sound a little animated about the experience we had, if you found it irritating to hear those lines and try to follow what they mean and peel back the layers of metaphor, only to find that there is no meaning at the center.
When did we become an immersive experience? Like, we're gonna annoy you so that you know how annoyed we are.
I don't know, man. I mean, like we came up with the Sleep No Moo episode, the immersive the immersive barnyard experience. I'm just saying, like, we should. I think what people really love is experimental theater, and I think that our podcast should become more like that because it aggravates nobody.
Listen, okay, I think there's some necessary context that we're missing here. First and foremost, this movie is written as a noir film. Like, it is 100% like transposing the idea of a authentic 1940s, early 1950s film noir to a dystopian science fiction future.
Sure.
Which is why there's a sort of performative aspect to the dialogue. It's supposed to kind of feel romanticized, classic Hollywood style.
Yeah.
It doesn't work, but that's what they're trying to do.
Yes. I think that, and I would have an easier time meeting the movie at its level if it was following through, this movie is making use of a lot of film noir aesthetics and window dressing without any of the shit that actually makes film noir movies good.
I'm gonna earmark that and come back to that in a little bit. I think there's some more necessary context that we need to have in order to really break this thing open. And so I thought we could do it this way. I have just a few story points.
Yes.
And I want you to fill in the blanks.
Of course.
This is more selfish than anything because I lost the thread of this movie at a certain point, and it just was really frustrating me.
This is the least findable thread of any movie. This is very small and completely translucent thread.
I'm going to make a few statements. You just tell me if they're correct or not, and then I'm going to follow up with a few questions, and maybe we can get the sense of this whole thing, okay?
Okay.
A rich bad guy baron had an affair with a woman that produced a secret child.
Yes.
Okay. There's a drug dealer called St. Joe.
Yep.
Who employs a corrupt cop to do his dirty work.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
And they recruit a junkie to seduce the memory service guy.
Nick Bannister, yes. Nick Bannister, the memory service guy. May is the junkie they recruit.
Okay. Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Junkman.
Rebecca.
Yes.
And huge junk, man.
Well, now, hey, he's in the water a lot. It's still no shrinkage. It's amazing.
Okay.
That's why he's holding his breath to kind of keep it inflated. Go on.
Okay, they recruit the junkie to seduce the memory service guy. The junkie then falls in love with the memory service guy and betrays the corrupt cop who recruited her.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. Junkie saves secret child.
Yes.
Hugh Jackman, memory service guy. What does he have to do with the Baron?
I mean, he kind of just is around. Hugh Jackman.
Okay, all right. How does the corrupt cop and the drug dealer pertain to the Baron?
I feel like the corrupt cop used to work for the drug dealer, and then the Baron, who has this illegitimate kid, finds out that the woman he had the illegitimate kid with has been going to Hugh Jackman's memory service And so Hugh knows that Hugh Jackman has a record of her memories on file, so the land baron has the corrupt cop use the beautiful woman to seduce Hugh Jackman, so that she can sneak in and steal the files of this lady's memory to eliminate all existence of the illegitimate child. Folks, I promise we'll stop talking about the plot soon, because it does not make sense.
I got 2 more questions for you. Is it true that we never actually see the corrupt cop and the Baron interact?
We never see them interact.
Okay, so the fact that I'm completely lost on how they connect to each other is not my fault.
It's not your fault. It's not your fault, Will Hunting. It is the movie's fault.
What the last question I have is then, why does the corrupt cop still keep working for the drug dealer after the drug dealer has been killed?
I think he's kind of freelancing at that point or something like that. I don't.
Who?
I don't know.
Okay. All right.
So much of this movie is about kind of a broader kind of Chinatown-y property rights conspiracy that's happening in the background. But there's a lot of key points of it that aren't really established. There's other key points that are given to you in kind of hastily ADR'd off-camera dialogue to kind of like spackle over bits that got cut or they didn't have money to shoot. And so it's... But the thing that you really need to know for the purposes of hearing us talk about it is that Hugh Jackman runs this service where they go through people's memories. He keeps a record of every person's memory that he helps them relive, and then
I have questions about the ethics of that. But go ahead.
I have questions about the marketability of that. But then Rebecca Ferguson shows up, just, oh, I lost my keys. She's wearing a skin-tight, sexy red dress.
Yeah,
also, Rebecca Ferguson...
Textbook femme fatale.
I don't know if you guys know this, but Rebecca Ferguson, quite attractive also. That might play into this. Within 1 minute of meeting him, he's explaining how the Reminiscence procedure works, and he's going like, no, so you'll have to, obviously disrobe to get into the tank. So I can get you a gown over here, and she just immediately strips her dress off right in front of him.
Is this the most naked PG-13 movie that's ever been?
It is. This is kind of why I'm like, if this movie had been written by a man, I would be kind of mad about how much nudity or how kind of weird this movie is to Rebecca Ferguson throughout. But there's a lot of nudity in it, or a lot of implied nudity. But so she then just throws herself at him basically, and they begin this relationship. And to anyone watching the movie, it's very clear. Yeah, I think this woman has some ulterior motives here, dude. The fact that she just walks into your job in like a sexy dress, which she takes off immediately, and then like actively pursues you, and like you have...
If you've seen a movie before, your eyes immediately start squinting going, yeah, okay, this is not what it seems.
I feel like even if the only movie you've seen is Boss Baby, you still might be able to discern that this woman has something going on. So it's like, already, yeah, so that is that. The entire thing, the plot twist of the movie is that she was setting him up the whole time to steal the record of this person's reminiscence.
Okay, let's talk about this in chunks, and I'm trying to decide what chunk to start with. I think maybe I want to talk about...
Might I suggest the Nick Bannister of it all? Can we just talk about Nick Bannister, Hugh Jackman's character?
I don't think I'm ready to talk about Nick Bannister yet.
Oh, you're not ready yet.
I'm not ready yet.
You're too emotionally wrapped up in the tableau of Reminiscence.
It's more of a self-protection thing. I need to build up some calluses before we get into Nick Bannister.
Okay.
I want to, I think, talk about the world building, the science fiction backdrop to this first.
Yes. Sure. Absolutely.
So we start, the very first shot of this is, a big budget Hollywood movie special effects shot of we start 30,000 feet in the air. It's a kind of a drone shot, and it's pushing over this, cityscape. The ocean is overtaking the city, kind of Venice Canal style, but it's just, what is it, New Orleans? Where does this take place?
It takes place in Miami. This is just flooded Miami, and we're very slowly pushing deeper and deeper into the city, and we see like signs of like, everything's flooded, but now it's like there's signs that society has adapted. People live on the roofs. There's like water taxis, and
But that's the thing, where it's all of those things you just mentioned are interesting details, but it's all shown in one pushing in shot that goes into like a close-up of the alleyway where the memory service shop is.
Yes.
And I think where this movie immediately loses me, going back to our Tarzan episode, is like my brain doesn't want to register as, this big CGI thing as important.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I don't want to be like, back in my day, we used to do characterization,
we build models of everything.
There's a version of this that's like, oh god, this sounds so stupidly incelly, but like,
oh boy,
like in Blade Runner, or the Star Wars Cantina scene, you're building a world by showing us the characters that inhabit it.
Yes.
You're showing us the like just watching like the neon streets, the wet neon streets with like the transparent umbrella and all those people in on the food court of Blade Runner like tells me more about that world than showing me a fast push-in shot over the entire city as water has kind of overtaken the city.
It's an extremely slow push-in shot, but otherwise, I'll give you that. We are very far away. We see what the world looks like. We don't really get a look at any of the people who are in it.
And because of that, this movie like lacks texture. And I feel like I feel like spending more. Well, I don't know about this. I'm not working the budget books of a big movie, but like screen time wise, you're not using up any more time than you would shooting it that way. But you're getting less of an effect in my book.
Yeah, I mean, in my book, I would say that the setting of this movie is probably by far the coolest thing about it and the thing that works the most for me. I totally agree with your point that it is underdeveloped in terms of like showing the people who live in the world, but there are a lot of just like kind of there is more creativity and inventiveness just shown in kind of like plotting out what this world would look like, there's this floating shanty town over here, or like there's the community, like there's kind of the cheaper, lower income communities, like the one where the memory service is. They're all located right along big flood walls that are like barely holding back the water, and there's always a little water trickling over the top, and the streets are kind of always have like a few inches of standing water in them. Like
the rich community where they've built a huge moat around their city so that they can't be flooded.
Yeah, it's like this big kind of island within the city where all the rich people live on dry land with huge like dams holding it back and bridges guarded by police. That's kind of the coolest and most original stuff.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the problem for me comes in that like it's nothing more than an idea, though. The work is missing that makes it real.
Absolutely.
And I'll give you a for instance. As that pushing shot of the landscape, comes into a close up, we're right in front of the memory service shop. I don't know what you want to call it. That's just what I've been calling it.
We're going to keep calling it the memory service shop. It's either that or the Reminiscence shop, and Reminiscence is kind of hard to pronounce sometimes.
Hugh Jackman is just coming to work. And the streets are about ankle high full of water.
Yeah.
And as he's stepping up, he picks up a queen off the ground, a queen of like a playing card.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he hands it to the guy playing Monty, 3-card Monty outside his shop. The lack of detail here is that the water he's walking through is the cleanest, clear ass water you've ever seen in your life. And there's still cars on the streets.
Normal
still
like just normal looking like 90s 2000s cars driving around.
There are still people, presumably even more, living on the streets, dying on the streets. Like, that water is shit water. It is not clear. I could just lap it up with my tongue if I got on all fours water.
Yeah, more Fallout video game logic there. Yes.
So there's just like a lack of reality to the ideas that bothers me.
A billion% yes. I would say that going off of that, yeah, there's just kind of always perma, like 6 inches of water flooding the streets. But Hugh Jackman and indeed everyone else are just like walking around through it in their normal shoes. And it's like, if this was actually thought through, all the characters would be wearing like saltwater sandals when they're walking around, and then changing into normal shoes when they get inside, which would look weird.
Some sort of like waterproof boot system
or they're walking on like stilt things. I don't know. It's just like
right.
There's been thought and some originality put into this is what a city would look like where they've adapted to flooding and it's not going very well, but no thought has gone into just even the basics of like, how would the human beings making their lives in this world get by? Which yes. Now I think this might be a good place for me to lay down my queen card that I pulled out of the crystal pure floodwaters. Folks, we mentioned that this script was a blacklist script, and for those of you who didn't listen to a previous episode where we talked about what this is, basically every year there's an organization in Hollywood called the Blacklist where they go around to all of the agencies and production companies. They anonymously survey the people who work there reading scripts and say, what was the best script you read this year? And then they make a list of the ones that get on there the most. So Reminiscence, 20 different Hollywood industry titan gatekeepers listed Reminiscence as the best script they read in all of 2013. And I thought to myself...
2013? Oh, wow. I didn't know it went back that far.
Yes. This was when it was on the blacklist. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm a real podcaster and I care about my listeners. So I downloaded the script for Reminiscence and I read it. And will be, yes, Landon, you're not the only one who reads things for the podcast. Oh, I'm Landon. I read Animal Farm. I read a book about sex tips for straight women from gay men. No, I read things too. I possess literacy, ladies and gentlemen. I also once wanted to be a professional screenwriter, so it is kind of my bag to read screenplays. So I read it. I'll be referring to the script throughout because it has some notable differences. But one of the most notable differences in the screenplay for Reminiscence is that script is set in New York City, and it's set in the future. But like flooding isn't really like a part of it. It's definitely a dystopian future, and it I don't know, you said the incel thing about talking about Blade Runner, but there's no way to talk about this movie without it, because like the screenplay for this very heavily leans into the Blade Runner-ness, where there's a big plot point is there are these holographic ads called night lights that are always in the sky and they block out the stars. And the bad guy in the movie is a property tycoon. The bad guy in the screenplay owns the company that has all the night lights. But
the bad guy you just mentioned, though, in this movie has one scene and then he dies off screen.
Yeah.
And then there's another bad guy that is a drug dealer who has one scene and then dies, and then the real bad guy becomes the corrupt cop, but maybe the baddest guy of all is Hugh Jackman.
Actually, yes. I would argue yes that he is a bad protagonist in numerous meanings of the word. But just in the original screenplay, the Nick Bannister, his investigation takes him to a bunch of different neighborhoods in New York City, and each one is kind of like just a different apocalyptic environment. Like this one is the crazy, fucked up drug den where everybody's tripping out. And now we're going to the New York Public Library that has now been turned into a tenement full of like super poor people and drug dealers. And then like now we're going into the abandoned subway tunnels, and everybody down here are like weird freaks who are ruled over by a tribunal of kangaroo court people. And one of the places is they go to the meatpacking district in New York City, which has been completely flooded and has like floating boat-based markets. So it seems like in the production process, someone said, hey, we can do one of these things, and the flooding seems like the most feasible, so let's go with that. And also, like, yes, they go to a bunch of vivid different locations in the screenplay, but I will say they don't really feel connected to each other. It's not like good. Like the characters, the places are all sort of distinctive, but it feels like each place that he goes to, it just kind of feels like, oh, Nick goes to this like we wrote in a flimsy reason for him to have to go to this new place so we can show off a new environment that will look cool on screen, not really because we've thought of a way that the subterranean subway freaks tie into the world where there's also like the district attorney who needs to like, we've got a warrant to look at this guy's memories. Like spoiler alert, I don't think the script is particularly good. I think the script is a little bit better. I think it's a little bit better than the movie, but not much. I think the script is pretty bad, and I'm really upset that 20 different people who have probably passed on scripts I wrote said this was the best script they read.
Did it include the VO?
Oh, did it include the VO, Landon? Did it include the VO? Let me give you okay, well actually no, this isn't a VO example, but this is an example of one of the many long monologues in the screenplay that did not make it to film. This is Bannister talking.
Get ready for that 30-second skip button, guys.
There is no behind, no ahead either. Time doesn't work that way. Time used to be a line. Now, it's a deck of cards scattered on a table. Can't order it any more than you can order stars in the sky. That's the ideal way to watch the movie too. If I could just advance through. The script for this movie is 133 pages long, and screenplay writers out there know that if you get north of 100 pages, a lot of people will start telling you that your script needs to be shorter. But not the case for this movie.
All right, you know what? I want to talk a little bit about, and this could segue us into talking about Nick Bannister, but
yes.
I want to talk a little bit about this as a genre.
Yeah.
So clearly it has sci-fi ambitions.
I think it wears them on its sleeve, what with it being set in the future and being about a weird dream machine.
Yes, but I mean, it's also clearly trying to be a classic film noir.
Yes. Boy, is it trying.
And then it's also, like, has these sequences of action in it. And
it's trying to be John Wick.
The romance, obviously. So,
it's trying to be The Notebook.
Here's my problem, is that this... My only problem, yeah, right. I'm a huge film noir fan.
Yes.
And I always have had a kind of like wrinkle when people like simplify it to it's just VO of a detective looking for someone, looking for the femme fatale who's gonna ruin his life by the end of it.
Yes, and don't forget people wearing hats.
Well, yes, okay.
The band Men Without Hats
that's
is
most
the least
of cinema.
morbid.
That extends far beyond film noir in the 40s.
Yeah, but this movie carefully deploys some Panama hats in key scenes. So in case you forgot what genre we're vaguely trying to ape.
So, okay, this movie, what I think it is indication of its sort of hollowness is like it's trying to be film noir, but the thing that made film noir so potent back in the 40s and 50s is that it was really a genre that came out of the post-war years. Mm-hmm. While most of them weren't like explicit about this, it's generally implied that most of the protagonists in film noir are soldiers coming back from the war,
sure,
not being able to reintegrate into society, often choosing a life of crime or just being on the outside of the system and looking for their play to get, the big payoff, how they can, find a way to reclaim some sort of control and place in society.
Yeah.
This film, like, I kind of knows that, but there's because they do mention that there's a war, and at very convenient points in the script, they bring in the fact that Hugh Jackman was in the army, in the service at some point.
They like the fact that there was a war that a bunch of characters in the movie served in is like a mallet that they periodically just bash the audience on the head with.
Yeah. And it's like, it should either be like it was a climate thing or it was a war thing. This tries to do both. Neither of them are particularly, potent. But the point I'm trying to make is, like, this is a fictional war that we're not given a lot of backstory on. We don't know what the, like, reintegration into society was like, and therefore they're trying to play on these ideas that film noir touched on, very real things that made them resonant. So the fact that they're trying to rebuild this with fiction and then not giving us enough information to invest in the background or understand the background, like, makes the noir part of this just a complete sham in a way. Like,
Yeah.
it's a shell. It's like watching a community theater version of a noir detective story.
Yeah. I mean, huge slam on community theater, dude. Watch out. But, like, I think that, like, to me, I just keep thinking of the Is It Cake show, where it's just you see a thing and you think it's a real thing, but then no,
You
it's
mentioned
just
that recently.
it's just fondant. It's frosting and fondant, and there's no there. So this is like you look at it and it's like, oh, it looks like a Panama hat or like a smoldering cigarette or a dame whose legs went all the way up, but then you reach out to touch it. No, I mean, maybe you ask the dame's permission first, but then your hand just goes through and it's just, there's nothing there to actually hold on to. It is just a bunch of people talking like gumshoes for no particular reason.
But they're talking like the way people think film noir is, as opposed to what film noir is. And that's what bothers me. It's like, you have to have the VO, you have to have the investigation, you have to have the femme fatale, you have to have the, clandestine romance.
The hats.
Talk about gotta have Panama hats with fedoras.
Hats. I mean, look, it's like, I'm trying to remember if this was The State or The Whitest Kids You Know. There was some comedy sketch that was just like a parody of a film noir movie where it's in black and white and it's a man and a woman on a train talking to each other, and they're just spitting such, like, convoluted metaphors back and forth that they both get confused about what they're trying to say. This movie is like trying to do that, but straight and for 2 hours.
Yeah. And okay, listen, to say something good, I really applaud its attempt at, like, sincerity and lack of irony. It doesn't work, but, like, so many films try to be like, we know what kind of movie we're making, and you want to see this shit, don't you? Like, in broad strokes, I appreciate that this is an original work that tries to take itself seriously, but for those very reasons, it also fails.
Yes. Look, have you healed enough? Is your soul complete enough
talk
that we
about
can talk
Nick.
about Nick
Let's
Bannister?
talk about Nick.
Okay, because I have a unified theory of Nick Bannister and what the problem is here.
Is it that he's a fucking psychopath?
Well, it's not. I mean, that definitely doesn't help. So Hugh Jackman's character, Nick Bannister, who runs the memory service, the Reminiscence machine. Here's the problem. He isn't good at anything. He has no skills. He is not. So he is.
He's the only person that can walk someone through a reminiscence.
Yes, that is the only thing that the movie cares to, like, have him show real skill at. But the thing is, the reminiscence machine and walking people through memories is such a weird and, might I say, dumb thing that is so hard to get your mind around. And and what he does guiding people through memories, it is basically him standing over them doing, like, Rod Serling Twilight Zone narration. Like, for it to work, he has to start off by saying, you're going on a journey through memory. Your destination, a place and time you've been before. To reach it, all you have to do is follow my voice. Like, he just has to mumble.
It's like a
hypnotist.
It's like a hypnotic suggestion, essentially. He's lulling them into a state of comfort and security so that he can guide them to the memories that they have claimed that they want to relive.
Sure. And watching a person do that on screen is pretty boring. And all of the other things that he does, like, that's his profession. He's not like a professional detective, but like when he's then doing this investigation and trying to find May, he's really bad at it. Like, the first lead that he finds, he goes to New Orleans to see this drug dealer and, like, bluffs his way into the drug dealer's den. The drug dealer immediately sees through what he's doing and is trying to drown him in a fish tank until Thandiwe Newton shows up and saves him. Like, later on in the movie, he sneaks into the land baron's home to interrogate the dead land baron's widow, and he gets caught by the security guards, and they are going to kill him, and they just randomly decide not to because the guard sees that he's a veteran and the guard is also a veteran, so they just let him go, which is like, I mean,
Operation Fortune Ruse de Guerre move.
Nick Bannister truly is a graduate of the Orson Fortune Institute for movie protagonists.
Operation Bannister.
Ruse de Flood. But also Nick Bannister is so, like, naive and guileless that he never once considers that this manic pixie dream girl who shows up on his doorstep and gets naked for him might be trying to seduce him in order to gain access to the treasure trove of very valuable MacGuffins that he keeps in a locked bank vault that can only be accessed by a song-activated lock. Like, it never occurs to him that she might have ulterior motives, and it takes him way longer to solve the mystery than it does for anyone watching the movie.
Two things.
Not good at anything.
One, we gotta put a pin in Nick to talk about the memory machine.
Now, not ours.
Two,
a different memory machine.
Well, I know. It's gonna be a feedback loop. And maybe that's why this movie and this episode is so trying, is like we're just caught in our own memory loop.
Do you think that maybe they're two pearls on the same necklace of time around
No. We're not going that way.
Neck of the mistress
No.
of temporal reality?
Shush.
But she's smoking a cigarette, and the cigarette is made of dreams, but the smoke comes from the universe.
Oh my god. I haven't shushed someone maybe ever, and you brought me to that point.
And it didn't work. I kept on saying dumb shit.
Okay, but okay. To what you just said though about Nick being dumb and unaware of all this stuff, like, we need more characters like Kurt Russell in Big Trouble in Little China, who's just like, it's okay for him to be dumb.
Yes.
This movie makes us want to root for, it tries to make us root for Hugh Jackman and think that he's in control or knows what he's doing, but it's just obvious that he's dumb, and I would almost have him be a dumb character.
Look, I am all about a movie being about a dumb guy, but this is something that David Chase, the creator of The Sopranos, once said, is that audiences will like pretty much any protagonist so long as the protagonist is good at their job. Like, so long as they're clearly good at something and that plays in. And it's like, well, I mean, sure, yeah, his job is running the Reminiscence machine, fuck you, whatever. His job is investigating this mystery, and he shows
the job
no
of the movie.
aptitude. Yeah, exactly. He shows no aptitude at this thing. You know?
Okay.
And it's like, look, I would compare, there's a movie I love called Blue Ruin, directed by Jeremy Saulnier. And the protagonist in that movie, part of the fun of it is this guy is going on this revenge mission to try and kill this guy, and he sucks at it, and he makes a lot of big mistakes along the way, but also he occasionally is very clever and occasionally gets some stuff right, and you kind of see, like, his tenacity at least and cleverness gets him through, and I don't really see cleverness here.
I will admit, you have to admire Nick Bannister's persistence. I would have given up. Like, I know he's like, he thinks he's in love and wants to pursue finding this girl. I like 2 days into it, I think I would have been like, I don't fucking know. I got other people coming in here. I'm tired. She ran off.
Yeah. This is the other thing. Yeah, Hugh Jackman's character, Nick Bannister, he destroys his entire life because he met a really beautiful girl and she ghosted him. And it's like, it's hard for me to get on board with this character as like a tough-as-nails, cold-blooded hero when the greatest tragedy in his life is a thing that happened to me like 3 different times in my 20s.
Only 3? Man, I've got you beat.
I mean, you could be an even better memory detective than me. I mean, it's just like, look, when all the times that I got ghosted, it sucked, and I probably sent more sappy OkCupid messages to the unresponsive girls than I should have, and I probably whined about it to my friends too much. But you know what? I moved on, and my life's in a pretty good place now, so, like,
Did you ever hit the streets looking for the girl, though?
You know, I never did, because probably I didn't want to be doing stalking. I didn't want to be a stalker. I mean, it's
good for you.
I'm not used to looking at the protagonist of a sci-fi action noir movie and thinking, this guy could learn some lessons about resilience from me, Truman Caps, whiny LA sad boy. There are two times when it thinks it's an action movie.
Okay, and I want to circle back to those. I think before we can continue talking about Nick and even this entire story, we have to talk about the memory machine, the Reminiscence machine.
Yes, the bad movie memory machine, not the very good one that you are listening to us in right now.
We're stuck in. So, okay, I want to talk about how it works, what its purpose is, the economics behind it, the ethics involved.
These are Zen koans. These are mind-clearing questions with no clear answers, but sure, go on.
Let's lay out the scenario. Okay. I'm a person, and
yes, you are.
Let's role play a little bit. I'm here. Okay, hey, you're gonna be Nick Bannister in this situation.
Hello,
hey,
I'm
Nick.
Hugh Jackman. G'day, mate.
God,
I just threw a memory on the Barbie.
Listeners, I realize it's on me that I gave Truman an opportunity to do an accent. I'm terribly sorry.
Yeah, man. You need to reflect on your memories of trying to have a conversation with me. You would know that was going to happen.
Okay, I'm entering into the memory service place. Hey, I want to do a memory thing. Why am I here?
Well, I mean,
am I here? Am I court mandated here? Is this an entertainment place?
It seems like an entertainment place.
I heard that. I heard that you can maybe help me relive a happy moment in my life that I want to remember. Can you do that for me?
Absolutely, I can. Here's what we need to do. I'll just get you set up.
Okay.
First, I'm going to take this syringe. You've just met me, and I'm going to jam it straight into your neck. This is full of sedatives.
I'm into it.
So you're going to be completely unconscious. Oh,
happy.
And for technical reasons for the memories, you do have to be naked. So I've already given you the drugs.
Completely naked, or can I have like a skin tight suit on?
Well, you can have a skin tight suit on. Some of our clients choose to just completely strip down right in front of me. That happened just recently. And it was really awesome.
I noticed that the tube that I'm supposed to lie in has water in it. Do you replace the water after each person comes in here, or am I sitting in butt juice of other people?
You know, sir, to get in here, you had to walk through a street full of butt juice, so I'm surprised you are in no position to be picky about the provenance of the water in which you are lying.
I'm just asking about the Reminiscence.
Yeah, of course. So no, you will have to lie in the water. We'll put a pin in the whole "how recently did I change the water" thing. Okay, and then we're gonna just put this this big clampy thing onto your noggin here with a million little electrodes, and then once you're floating in the water with that on your head and you're totally knocked out, I'm just gonna start Twilight Zone narrating into this here microphone, and then all of your memories are going to be projected up onto this gigantic kind of 3D screen right there in the center of this big room.
I have a question. Okay,
yeah, of course.
I'm assuming you're talking about that big circular thing that has the like crystal cords hanging from it.
Yeah, crystal cords, standard technology stuff that happens all the time in this weird future.
So it's kind of like a holographic projected image of my memory into those.
It's great.
Into that.
If I so choose, I can actually walk into among those cords, and it's like I'm living inside your memories, which is kind of cool if I'm in a sad, horny mood, which happens to me, Nick Bannister, quite frequently. Anyway, continue.
All right. You mentioned something I just want to ask about, which is that you project all of my memories.
Yeah,
so
sure.
Do you have access to my entire subconscious, or are you limited to only what I'm asking you to see? Because I just want to see my dog that died.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, sure, we can show you your dog, but I will totally have access to basically every single thing you've ever seen in your entire life. I can kind of scrub through it at will. And also, this is my alcoholic assistant over here. You may have noticed her. Despite being in the throes of alcoholism, she looks great. She is doing really well. But she is also going to be sitting here watching all of your memories, and yeah, I have total control to see every single thing that's ever happened to you.
Okay, before I break this role play, I, as in character, have to ask, how do you keep this place funded?
Oh, well, you know, I mean, paying customers such as yourself. I mean, much like on the popular TV show Cheers, there's never much discussion of how much this costs. Yeah, no, I mean, but I think you hand me like a little thing of cyber
I was in
money.
the army.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case, not only will I not charge you, but also because you were also one of the presumably millions of people mobilized in the army for this world war, I will also not kill you, I guess, later if I'm a security guard in a situation. One last thing, a couple last things before I fully put you under and we start getting you that nice memory of you throwing the stick for your dog. After this is done, I am going to have a hard copy record of your memories, which I'm going to keep. That's mine now. I'm going to keep it.
Wait.
Hold on. It's going to go in that vault, and there's no way anyone could get in that vault. No one could.
What are you saving them for?
No, just normal stuff, man. You know, there's just normal reasons. I just like to have a hard copy of everybody's memories. Also,
wait. So, am I signing a waiver that says that you can look at every single memory I have and record it and store it in a vault in this memory service storage place?
Yep. That is the Nick Bannister memory service promise. And I think I should also just let you know, though, if when I'm narrating to you during your memories, if I say the wrong thing or ask you a leading question, you actually might die. You will start having seizures, and you could die. Also, if you come back here too often, you could also get trapped in an endless loop of your own memories and basically be in a vegetative state. So anyway, here's the needle.
Well, cool. That's what I want, so let's do this.
Stab and blackout. Okay, we need just one more word from the audience, and that'll start part 2.
Okay, a few things we didn't cover there. That I am questioning is like, okay, they try to cover this up with dialogue in clunky as shit ways.
Yes.
Of some memories, let me rephrase this. Most memories that we see are in third person.
Yes.
One memory we see is in first person.
Yep.
When Hugh Jackman goes to see Rebecca Ferguson after she's visited him the first time, and she left her earrings behind so that she'd come after her.
Classic leave behind.
He'd come after her. When he shows up at the bar where she's singing, because she's a lounge singer.
You know those very popular lounge singing crooner bars in the future.
I will. Side note: there is a point at which she sings a song. I think it's called. I can't remember the name of it, but she sings "Rock Lobster" and it was fantastic.
It would be this movie would be a 10 out of 10 if she's just like just somebody went under a dock. I mean, that's relevant to their lives. They all live on docks and stuff. There must be rock lobsters all over the place.
She sings a real song that's by a band called Cigarettes and Sex, and I
not bad.
Looked it up after this, and I thought, that's a pretty damn good song.
Okay.
So that movie gave me that, and I'll cherish that. But okay,
thanks.
Going back to the machine.
Yes.
And the perspective thing. When we're watching her memories for the first time, because she comes in saying, "I lost my keys. Where the fuck are my keys? Let me get in the memory machine and look for my keys."
This is by far the easiest way to find my keys. I'll just have a stranger drug me and get naked for him and let him look at all my memories.
Not at all suspicious, Hugh Jackman. You pure thing.
Yes. He's just the veteran of a brutal world war. Why would he be cynical in any way? He's just the protagonist of a film noir movie. Why would he have any doubts about people's honesty?
She's looking for things, and she's looking under her dresser. She's looking under her bed. At one point, she moves some clutter out of the way. We see one of her vibrators.
Woo!
And
saucy.
And then it goes to the next scene, in her memory of when's the next time you had your keys that you're sure of. She's, behind the scenes in the green room kind of getting ready, and she takes them out and they fall on the floor and like, got it. Okay, that's where they are. So when he goes to the bar to talk to her, he is like, she asks him a very specific question about, like, how much of my memory are you able to see, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, let me give you a demonstration. Close your eyes.
So
and then he walks her
stupid.
through. He
Fucking
walks her through the
pickup artist
scenario
incel
of
bullshit.
He walks her through the scenario of, okay, remember your first kiss, and he, gets her to envision all the tactile, sensory things about it, who it was, where they were, how it felt, etc., etc. And then he's getting closer and closer to, like, actually kissing her, and I'm like, don't kiss her when she's thinking about her first kiss. This is creepy as shit.
Yeah.
And then right before he does, he stops and then goes, at the end of that, did you start to see yourself? That happens to most people when they're looking at things. And she's like, then why didn't I see my keys or something like that? And he's like, well, we tend to overlook the details. The things that we see in everyday life, we tend to focus on, the specifics of the memory, not the clutter that usually fills up our life.
That scene this is a problem that happens a lot with this movie. I watched that scene and I was like, wait, what the fuck were they saying? And I rewound it and I watched the scene again. And I was like, wait, what? And I went back one more time and, like, really tried to parse it. And then I went and read the screenplay where they also seem to try and explain these concepts. And it's still, like, only now with you walking me through it do I get, oh, okay, I guess that's the explanation for why the dreams are in third person. Although, actually, admittedly, in the screenplay, they specifically note all of the reminiscences are viewed in first person. So,
which would be, I think, more interesting visually.
That would be okay. Well, look, this is another sci-fi movie, much better, that this movie is ripping off, is Strange Days, where a big plot point is people will, like, put on these neuro headbands and record their experiences, and then you can download them off the 90s internet. And right on down to the thing that you wear to, like, record experiences in Strange Days looks a lot like the thing you put on in Hugh Jackman's butt water tank. Come on down to Hugh Jackman's butt water tank. But in Strange Days, those sequences are so arresting because it's like you are in the cockpit for every minute of it.
You're being John Malkovich-ing those memories.
Yes.
This is another, like, okay, I realize we're layering one too many things into this conversation right now.
Much like this movie layers one too many details into its plot.
And as an explanation to, like, the kind of forgettable nature of this, like, it would have been more, like, visually arresting if you had to watch it on, like, this shitty old, CRT monitor, like, where the images are kind of coming in and out, not this, like, Gaussian curtain of beads where everything is crystal clear and it's just this romantic, It's
like they're watching a black box theater production in the middle of their office, like and so people just kind of fade in and out from the edges as they walk in and out of the memory. And I don't understand the appeal of this service. I don't understand how many customers are just really gung-ho to have all of their shit projected for people to watch.
Listen, there is a line in here that, explains it. I don't think this movie demonstrates it very well, but the explanation is at least plausible, judging by our current society, which is, hey, Truman, we live in a society.
What? Oh my god.
The explanation that Hugh Jackman gives, I think, in VO is nostalgia is a hell of a drug.
Yeah.
Which, like, how many people, given the opportunity, would go and rewatch Star Wars in the theater for the first time, or, like, go back to their 80s arcade. They want to relive what they think watching Stranger Things feels like.
Yes. Yeah.
And then they realize, oh shit, no, this sucks. Reagan's president, and everything is not as cool as I thought it was.
The beer is terrible, and I have to wait like a week for the next episode of Cheers to come out. I'm going back. No, I think that also part of what's hard for me to get my head around this whole, people are so gaga for nostalgia that they're going to go to this wildly invasive and voyeuristic service, is that, like, this is one of the more appealing dystopias I've seen in a movie. Like, I'm not trying to make light of climate change. It's real and it sucks. But I think, like, everyone in this movie, like, they have kind of open and airy apartments, even if they're kind of run down. They're overlooking, like, beautiful lapping waters, and, like, the sun is always kind of setting like it's magic hour. There's always the distant calling of seagulls. It's like, and I mean, also, apocalyptic future flooded Miami seems to have a pretty robust public transit system, which is so reliable that Hugh Jackman's character does not own a car. He takes the elevated train system everywhere, which is a dramatic improvement over what Florida is like right now. To say nothing of
about it.
To say nothing of Los Angeles and most other cities in America. Like, it doesn't, like, yes, there's some darkness to this world, but it doesn't seem like this is not like Children of Men level bad. This is not like Neon Genesis Evangelion, like we are staring the end of society in the face. Like,
well,
people are like hanging out in bars where there's lounge singers.
And that juxtaposition is partly why this doesn't work, because the characters in it seem to think it's Children of Men.
Yes.
But it's not.
Yeah.
It's such a colorful and clean-looking world. Even when they go to New Orleans, where the levee has broken, like, the houses are all broken and battered down and everything, but, like, yeah, as you said, there's just, like, serene-sounding seagulls, like, they talk about crime and everything, but you don't, like, see crime on the streets. It's not like, I mean, fucking hell. Back to the Future Part 2 does a better job of this.
Yes.
I mean, Potter's World in It's a Wonderful Life does a better job of explaining the kind of criminal world that, that this inhabits rather than this movie.
And like, there's a lot of voiceover also. Like, he'll be riding the train and, like, he'll be going over, like, a street where there's some cop lights flashing and angry people shaking their fists, and he goes, like, there's lots of civil unrest in this world, or something almost as on the nose as that, to try. And it's like, okay,
I think I wrote that line down somewhere.
I mean, look, there's a lot of one-off. The bad lines in this movie veer between heavily overwritten monologues or just completely on the nose one-off lines.
Always makes promises it can't keep. This is Truman. Are we sure this isn't the poetry that Tommy Lee Jones wrote in college?
Landon, I said the same thing. I really do feel like Tommy Lee Jones wrote this script to try and impress his high school girlfriend, and all of his friends at that private school in Houston didn't want to give him page notes because they were afraid he'd beat them up. My favorite line in this happens right after, like, there's the scene where Hugh Jackman has blundered right into a trap, and the drug dealer is holding his head in this tank full of eels trying to drown him, but then Thandiwe Newton comes in and is shooting all the guys, and she shoots the tank, and the bullet in slow motion goes right through the tank, and he watches the bullet go through the tank, and then afterwards he gets up and she walks over and he says, "Good thinking, shooting the tank." Ooh, chills.
Well, there's a line early on with his army buddy that coming into the memory storage place, where kind of the introduction of, her name's Watts in the movie, Thandiwe Newton's, and the army buddy goes, "Heard you were a good shot," and she responds, "Yeah, if I was drunk and aimed one guy to the right."
This is like,
it's trying way too fucking hard.
It's video game dialogue. I've had that conversation with a space marine in a video game from, like, 2007.
Also, there's one thing about this dialogue that is, like, the indecipherable nature of it often is, like, I'm thinking of when they Hugh Jackman and Thandiwe go to the DA's office.
Yeah.
And they're getting in, I don't even know why they go to the DA's office to begin with, but they're there.
Yeah, because
and
it's a noir movie. The DA has to be in it. That's why.
Someone asks a question about the details of a memory and why you can see some things on the outside of it, but you don't when you're on the inside of the memory. And Hugh Jackman says things are defined by their absence, and then Thandiwe says they didn't make an impression. So, like, the characters in this movie have to explain the dialogue of other characters in this movie to the characters in this movie.
Yes, so much. There is so much shoe leather of trying to just explain how Reminiscence works and the inherent contradictions of it. And I mean, hot take, I don't think Reminiscence is that cool of a concept. Like, I don't think it's really compelling enough to build a movie around. Like, okay, you can have more intense memories by floating in a tank. Like,
listen, I completely disagree with that, except for how they try to do it in this particular instance. There are so many movies, amazing movies about memory,
sure,
that
and podcasts about it
use the like dreamlike style or dreamlike structure of the cinematic medium to be able to tell their stories. Last year at Miriam Bad, and some of the films of Wong Kar-wai, which I have to imagine they use as influence because the visual style of this kind of has that, you know, sort of 35 millimeter velvety texture at times that seems like it's pulling from 2046 or even a little bit of Chungking Express. But so yeah, I think that there is a way to do this. It's just not this way. The big Hollywood blockbuster approach to this material does it the biggest disservice.
It's like, I mean, and I'll give you that. I'll give you that. Like, the concept of reliving memories or, like, being caught in the past or whatever, yeah, sure, that's a rich thing. I don't know if, like, the concept of, oh, the guy with a memory machine, like, I don't know that a noir mystery is the right way into that. Like, the whole concept of, I broke up, you know, this woman left me, and I'm obsessed with trying to figure out what went wrong, and I'm caught in this loop of the memories. Like, okay, like, there's juice to that. Give me that. But it's like, you like, don't graft a Sam Spade story into the middle of it where it doesn't make sense.
This is my biggest gripe with this movie, is, like, it's trying to be way too many things.
Yes.
And, like, I don't need you to attempt to do a jaw-dropping hammer fight scene in a science fiction romance movie.
Hey, wait, but no other movie has done a scene where the camera tracks with a guy down a hallway with a hammer where he tries to fight someone. I mean, it's such an original concept that's never been done very well.
I feel like ever since Lawrence Fishburne broke his head on that ceramic sink in The Matrix in 1999, every single science fiction film has to have two guys going at it and busting through a wall of ceramic tile or some shit.
Yes.
Preferably if the room is wet.
Yeah, of course. Okay, this movie cribs so much from so many other better films, and I one of the things that I noticed in the screenplay, like, it would be easy to look at this and say, oh no, they, you know, whatever, it was a blacklist script, it was really good, and the producers made them be really derivative. But that is also happening in the original screenplay. Indeed, in the original script, and also true to the form of this movie not really knowing what it wants to be, in the screenplay, there's a scene at the end where he is, you know, he's found the corrupt cop, Boothe is his name, Cyrus Boothe, and Bannister is trying to interrogate him with the Reminiscence drugs, but Boothe is able to get away from him and get out and escape and go on the run, and it's this, like, it becomes this car chase through the streets of future New York. A, this is another case for Bannister not being good at his job, even at the screenplay level. Like, why? Like, how did you let him get away? B, they do this car chase, and, like, in the script, there's all these, like, auto taxis, like, automatically, like, AI-driven taxis. You just tell them where they want you to go, and they take you. Bannister jumps into one, and he's trying to chase the guy who's made off on, like, a motorbike or something, and in order to, like, get control of the taxi, he has to bash open, like, the AI control thing and, like, be hot wiring it and finally be able to get control of it so he can automatically drive it. And it's like, okay, well, that's Total Recall. That's the Johnny Cab chase in Total Recall.
Yeah.
There's this big, like, 6-page long, very elaborate car chase. He catches up to the bad guy, is able to capture him, and then he just takes him back to the place that the guy escaped from and interrogates him. So there was no point. There was no point to the car chase. It was a completely pointless action scene that just blows up the runtime of the script.
so glad you said this, because this was actually a note I had about the rooftop fist fight, which was like the whole sequence. So he goes to confront Boothe because, or not, he goes because he thinks he's gonna find May. Is it back in Miami? These like slums of Miami?
Yeah, I think they're back in Miami. They go to New Orleans and then they go back to Miami. In the script, he's in New York. He goes to Boston for a little while and then he comes back to New York.
Okay,
and they're not appreciably different. Yeah.
At any point, he gets to this place where he's like, I know where she's gonna be, and so then he goes to the he's like, I had to enter hell, and he goes to like these slums.
Is he Jigsaw? Do you want to remember playing a game?
He goes to like this underpass and this warehouse. Like the locations feels kind of dream logic, where it's, but not in a good way, where like one thing doesn't seem to connect to another, but whatever, it doesn't fucking matter. He's following someone that he believes is May. Follows the sequence takes fucking forever,
so long,
and I'm like, the second he sees her, I'm like, it's this trope where you're following someone from behind, then you grab him by the shoulder, you turn him around after 5 minutes, and you realize it's not the person you thought it was, and then there's a person that taps you on the shoulder from behind, and then they are the person that's going to take you in a direction that you didn't think you needed to go for the story to go forward.
Yep.
So sick of that trope. But it gets even worse, because we go through this long sequence of him following her upstairs. She goes into this room. She leads him to Boothe, and then we see that, of course, it's not May. Boothe turns around. They have this conversation, and then Boothe, jumps out the window and starts this fight, chase scene that turns into a fight scene. The sequence is like 10 minutes long, and ends with Hugh Jackman getting, just having many opportunities to kill him and not killing him.
Yep.
Which I understand, because he wants to get his memories.
Yeah.
But if you want to get his memories, why are you swinging the pointy end of a hammer at his skull?
Yeah.
Like, yes, okay, you trapped his arm in a piano, and the piano's sinking underwater, and you dive in to save him, and you do. But, like, what the fuck were you going to do if you accidentally, brained him with the hammer?
Yes. A few points here. I completely agree with you about, like, not only is this movie in the macro sense cribbing concepts and ideas and imagery from a bunch of much better science fiction movies, it is also on just a moment-to-moment, scene-by-scene level, just cribbing shit you've seen in every action movie. Like, when Boothe jumps out the window and he's chasing him, it's like, Boothe runs across, like, a place where there's a bunch of laundry hung up and bed sheets, and it's like, Bannister with his gun, like, going through the sheets, and, like, he could be on any end of the sheets, and then finally he is. It's like, how many movies? Why are they always running through someone's laundry in movies? Tumble dry, folks. This would not happen if you just got a dryer.
Would love... okay, this is, the eye-rolly Monday morning writer's room part of me coming out, but, like, I'm almost less interested, not even almost, definitely less interested in him being an old army vet than, like, what if, like, for the war, his only contribution was that he was able to be the technician for this memory service.
Yeah.
Because they very subtly suggest that the whole idea of this memory extraction happened as an investigation technique during the war.
Yeah, interrogation stuff, yeah.
Yeah. Make him like a nerdy character who doesn't know how to fight, but
exactly.
he, is forced into this. If you're gonna have the fighting, like, make it interesting of, like, him being so outmatched.
Yes.
And, out of his element. The fact that they're both just, like, evenly matched brutes, like, is the most uninteresting bullshit. And by the end of this, to get way back to the point you made, my note, almost after every sequence at this point in the movie, it was just like, there's no point in those 10 minutes, there's no point in those 10 minutes, there's no point in those 10 minutes. You're just delaying the fucking runtime here.
It is. I keep going back to the Mystery Science Theater line. This is just packing peanuts. It is 80, it is 20% movie, 80% packing peanuts. Him being a shrimpy little nerd boy would be a great change, because then it makes more sense that, like, oh, his whole plot is that he's just sad and horny because he met a beautiful girl and she disappeared on him. Then it makes sense that
holds more water.
Well, yeah, much like the flood walls, yeah. Or the butt walls, yeah. But, like, it would make more sense for him to be just a whiny little sad boy, but instead it's, like, ripped, buff, handsome Hugh Jackman. It's like, dude, you will meet another beautiful woman. It's okay. You're fine, dude.
You work with Thandiwe Newton. Come on, man.
She's right there. She's apparently pickling her liver with alcohol, but she looks incredible. What is going on? But you know,
just a quick side note, because I don't have too much on their relationship, Watson and Nick here, but the shorthand for them at the beginning of this movie was so stupid to me. It was like, how do we know that they are like each other's right and left hand? He walks in, she says he's late, she dresses him for some reason. There's no reason she needs to dress him.
Yep.
She dresses him.
Yeah, she dresses him.
They go through the first memory thing, and then once he's going to store the memory, like, they are literally, like, I could just lean over and touch them, but they are tossing keys back and forth to each other.
Yep.
She tosses the keys to open the vault. He opens the vault, puts the thing in. He tosses the keys back to her. I'm like, you're one step away. You could just hand the keys.
It's also like that she's dressing him at the beginning. She's helping him put on his blazer and adjusting his tie. And it's like, why do you need to wear a blazer and a tie? Like, you don't need to wear that to do the Reminiscence. The button-down shirt, you're fine in your shirt sleeves, dude.
You're running
like,
a business, Truman.
It's his own business. And also, he doesn't even have his tie tightened all the way. You work for yourself, and you still put on a suit every day.
Do you think there's Reminiscence competition? Is he the only business in town?
Well, no, because there is, and the screenplay makes a bigger thing of this. There is, like, corporate Reminiscence services where they put you in, like, a really future-y tank. That's where Thandiwe goes to work at the end of the movie, where she's working at the...
That's what that was?
That's what that is. Those are also Reminiscence tanks, but, like, his is just, I don't know, he's better at it or something.
So when she says... oh god, the ending of this movie...
We'll get to that.
I don't know that I can contain myself if we talk about it, but...
Yes.
After we get the kind of coda to her character, she's working in this place that, you know, it looks like she was just a CNA, but she is talking to a family. There's a tank in front of them, and she says, don't worry, he'll be nice and comfortable, and he can survive for X amount of time, you know, in here. So what you're telling me is that their father, whoever the fuck is in the coma or on life alert, is just permanently in a happy memory loop?
Yes. That is a concept direct from the screenplay. It's a bigger thing in the screenplay, but just like old people just go into these kind of permanent suspension memory tanks to relive their happiest memories forever.
Which is what Hugh Jackman does.
Yes. Hugh Jackman at the end of this movie just decides to spend the rest of his natural years in a Reminiscence tank remembering the events of this movie, which is the opposite of what a normal person would want to do.
Hold on.
We can't... Look, I
have to comment on that.
Okay,
I have to comment on
I was trying to talk about his fight scene with Boothe like 20 minutes ago, but
I'm done with the Boothe fight sequence, but
okay.
Unless you have more about it.
What I will say about it, I want to call out something good. He is chasing Boothe across these rooftops, right? They wind up in like a room that is half flooded full of musical instruments. He traps Booth's arm in a piano and then just like kind of pushes down on the piano, and the piano falls through the rotting floorboards and sinks down into what we find is a completely flooded like concert hall opera house. That's a cool image, and also that's a kind of hilarious way to die, is you just get your arm trapped in a piano that falls through the floor. There's that. Hugh Jackman dives into the water after him and proceeds to hold his breath for 4 or 5 hours while he tries to free him from the piano so he can get at his memories. And then he gets Boothe free, and Boothe starts swimming back up towards the water, but then he kicks Hugh Jackman, and Hugh Jackman just starts sinking back down. The human body is naturally buoyant. Like,
not if you've started absorbing the water.
But he hasn't, though.
And he is wearing clothes.
Yeah, he's wearing clothes, but this is not the Hugh Jackman who has metal injected into his bones. That's a different Hugh Jackman. Like, you don't just sink. Like, if anything, it's a struggle to not be floating up to the top. I
don't know. If your lungs have started taking on water, I think you start to sink.
I don't know that his lungs are taking on water at that point, though. If his lungs were taking on water, he'd be thrashing around and freaking out. Like say if he was drowning in a tank in a movie about magicians. Okay.
All right.
Oh, the end of the movie. The end of the
I don't
movie.
want to see. This is why I wanted to mention it 2 minutes ago, because now I'm like, I don't want to fucking talk about the end of this movie.
Okay, well, you can remember what you were feeling like 2 minutes ago. You can reminiscence to it, and then continue with your bit.
Let's talk about the beginning of this movie. Okay.
Wow. Okay, whiplash.
The point where this movie loses me, like the first 20 minutes are kind of eye-rolly and like, okay, maybe this movie will just get going. But at the 26-minute marker, after Rebecca Ferguson has exited Hugh Jackman's life,
yes,
suddenly, like Weapon X exploding from the tank in the Stryker facility. I know that's not what it's called.
Like the Greatest Showman meeting a bearded lady and saying, "Hey, let's invent circuses."
No. I mean, Weapon X literally emerges from a tank of water.
Yeah.
The way that Hugh Jackman is emerging from a tank of water here.
And the circus literally emerges from the Greatest Showman's imagination. It's the same thing, Landon.
It turns out the first 26 minutes of the movie were Hugh Jackman's memory, and it's actually, the movie is now starting months later from when we thought it did.
Yep.
There is nothing in screenplay structure, movie making structure, that if you're not doing something avant-garde, like, this is the fastest way to lose my investment in the thread that I'm trying to follow.
Yep. Just
the second that
rug.
happened, I literally, like, I felt the depression go over my body. I'm like, oh, we're gonna deal with a non-linear story.
I know what you mean. It's just that I felt that depression literally the second I started hearing his voiceover at the beginning of the movie, when I was just like, "Oh God, it's gonna be this."
That was just white static to me. At least the first 2 times I tried to watch this,
your eyes were already getting
like
heavy.
like I was going down a memory that I didn't have, and I was emerging in static and brain damage.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what it feels like when I'm listening to VO, poetic VO like this. It just doesn't register in my head.
Yeah.
So I guess I didn't quite get the red flags that you did right out the gate.
The CGI imagery doesn't register to your brain as something that should matter, and likewise, this really flowery, like, circular prose also registers to your brain as noise that doesn't matter, so it just gets discarded. Yes. It's like a car alarm going off.
So that isn't great. And then what proceeds is, like, through the rest of the film, I never know if I'm watching a memory or I'm watching the actual story. And so it's impossible to follow the thread. At some points we're watching Hugh Jackman's memory, and it's like, it doesn't reveal itself to be a memory until he emerges from the tank, and it's like, okay, great, now we have new information, but because I didn't know I was watching a memory, I don't know which information is important, and, like, which information you're just trying to develop this flimsy romance with. It just does not work on any level. And I think part of it is, like, they're doing this nonlinear thing to cover up the fact that the story itself is completely unsatisfying.
Yes. Well, and the romance in particular between Hugh Jackman and Rebecca Ferguson, I mean, there's, we get these flashbacks, he will go back to these scenes between them, or these moments between them, but there's no sense in any of these, like, happy moments with them that they, like, relate to each other like normal people. Like, they don't seem to have, like, stuff in common, or there's no sense of how their different personalities complement one another. They only speak to each other.
They have a naked picnic.
They have a naked picnic, a naked lunch, one might say. Like, I think it's during the naked picnic, like, she goes like, "Tell me a story." What kind of story?
No, that's on the rooftop.
That's on the rooftop, whatever. But it's just like their whole relationship is just like trading kind of like vague comments.
Let's go through that dialogue real quick, because this is where I get kind of annoyed with writers when they're trying to be, when they think they're more clever than I am.
Yes.
And this dialogue is a representation of what they're trying to do with this movie.
Yeah.
So just a real quick back and forth what those lines are.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, tell us what they are.
Tell me a story. What kind of story? One with a happy ending. There's no such thing as a happy ending. All endings are sad, especially if the story was happy. Then tell me a happy story and end it in the middle.
And that's the structure of this movie. And it thinks it's being clever by, like, having that mentioned in it, but then also structuring it so we're actually starting the movie in the middle of the story, or we're ending the movie in the middle of the story because he's going back to the memories of that. It's a whole thing.
Hey Landon. Hey Landon. Yeah. In the screenplay. The screenplay for the movie Reminiscence that was on the blacklist, 20 of the best and brightest of Hollywood's brightest lights put on their list. The end of the movie, you know, he's in the tank and he's reliving all this, and he's reliving that experience about, like, tell me a happy story, and end it in the middle. After the last line of the screenplay, 2 words in all caps. If you were a rube, you might think it would say the end. Nah, dog. It ends with the words the middle underlined. Yeah. Every agent in Hollywood just simultaneously orgasming. Oh my god! The most profound screenplay I've read.
Ugh. Hold on. I gotta recover from that.
It's so bad. They're like, the conversations that they have with each other. It's like the I don't know. It's like the kid in American Beauty who thinks that a bag blowing around in the wind is the most beautiful thing.
Yes.
Like, it is, and it would make sense. Like, this is a very 16-year-old's conception of love. Another argument for why Tommy Lee Jones wrote this movie in the early 60s. But, like, this is like what a teenager thinks that love is, which is like lying in a sun-dappled field naked because you're just boning all the time, and, like, talking about, like, you know, people like us don't fall in love, we plummet, or something like that.
Well, listen, I get your meaning, and I agree with it to a large degree. But, you know, there is an argument that, like, people don't want to see that exact point-for-point reality on the screen.
Yeah.
The failure is that, I mean, you could do this. It's just there's so many failure points before we see it that at no point do I believe it. If you can make me believe in the reality of their situation, I won't even question a scene like that.
Look,
I don't believe any of it.
Look, because I think you can buy into and invest in a love story between two people simply if you understand what each character's values are and what things they like and are looking for, and if you can see how those things are represented in the other person. Because we never really know either of these characters that well.
And especially the Rebecca Ferguson character, which is like, we're introduced to her knowing that she's keeping him at arm's length and holding secrets, so it's like we're just waiting for that shoe to drop.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're just watching Hugh Jackman be a rube through it, when really she has a ruse de guerre at some point. she's gonna drop a trick of war. And I don't know. It's just, this whole thing is just kind of stupid. Can we take a detour and talk about the actors for a bit?
Yeah, let's talk about the actors for a bit.
All right. Because I think this cast is good. I think these are good actors.
Sure.
Doing terrible lines.
True.
And doing their damnedest. I mean, like, they don't...
What do we say? Everyone is doing their damnedest?
They don't fail... They fail because of the script. They don't fail in spite of themselves.
This is true. I would say that Hugh Jackman, particularly in his voiceover, seems to be specifically aping the edit of Blade Runner where the studio made them write really shitty voiceover and Harrison Ford did a really shitty reading of it to try and make them not use it.
Maybe, but you said it's written into the script. The VO for Blade Runner wasn't written into the script.
I agree. It's just like Hugh Jackman is just like, maybe if I do a really shitty read on this, the writer of the movie will decide to take out the voiceover that she wrote.
I want to talk just real quick where this falls in everyone's career. Let's start with Hugh Jackman. Listen, it's an easy career to follow since he's been in the superhero spotlight pretty much since its inception in the early 2000s with the X-Men movies.
Yep.
So let's just fast forward and start talking about him post Logan.
Yeah.
When he, decided to hang the Wolverine character up
forever,
up until
never to resume,
up until the most recent Deadpool movie. Which this episode is recording before Deadpool comes out and will be released after Deadpool comes out.
In a completely different world. We're going to Reminiscence tank our way back to this time.
Yeah. Okay, so right after after Logan, he goes. He like, I'm done with superhero stuff, and he immediately goes back to his musical roots with The Greatest Showman.
Yeah.
Interesting. That also stars Rebecca Ferguson.
Interesting.
Now, one of the biggest pieces of trivia for this movie is that in The Greatest Showman, Rebecca Ferguson's singing voice was replaced by a professional singer. In this movie, she actually gets to show her authentic vocal chops.
Yeah,
and they're adequately, smoky and sultry.
Adequately smoky and sultry. It's like you're talking about a wine that you just tasted. I will agree that she's a good singer, but also when he gets to the nightclub and she is singing and he's falling in love with her as she sings, I was so put off by the whole thing that I was like, please don't show me the whole song. Please don't show me the whole song. Oh, we're gonna do the whole song. Okay. Oh, it's gonna keep going, huh?
Yeah, agreed. But that's not on her. That's on the movie.
Agreed.
So, okay, I kind of feel like after Wolverine, the character of Wolverine, Hugh Jackman just got, like, fucking tired. He's like, I'm sick of maintaining this, like, chiseled body.
Yeah.
And so, like, he does The Greatest Showman. Then he does a forgettable movie with Jason Reitman called The Frontrunner.
Oh, yeah, it's about Gary Hart.
He does an HBO movie called Bad Education. And then, besides that, he mostly just does voice acting. He does The Missing Link, an episode of The Simpsons, and Big Mouth. And after this movie, so between when Reminiscence came out August 20th, 2021, and when we're recording this in 2024, he's only appeared on screen once.
Wow.
And that was in a movie called The Sun by Florian Zeller, which is his follow-up to the Academy Award-winning movie The Father, starring Anthony Hopkins.
Ah, yes. Pretending
interesting.
I remember.
Like, we talked last week that George Clooney, after Money Monster, was just like, yeah, I can see where my career is going. I'd rather, go out with my star status than, fade out. And I think Hugh Jackman's kind of the same way here. He's like, yeah, nothing's quite hitting. Maybe I just, like, take it easy for a little bit.
Yeah, maybe I just slip into a warm bath of my own butt water and relive my glory days forever.
Start my own alcohol company.
I mean, everybody's doing it, man. Everybody's doing it. That's what stardom is now, is your own bespoke liquor.
And then let's talk about Rebecca Ferguson. Rebecca Ferguson is such a frustrating case because she, to me, when you look at her career, highlights the problem we're in with Hollywood right now. Because I think she's a talent on par with, like, an Ingrid Bergman, which is the biggest praise I can possibly give, and not just because they're both Swedish, but like, she has so much talent that's being relegated to, like, the Mission Impossible movies, the Dune movies. Not that these are bad necessarily, but, like, she's in the Apple Plus show Silo, based on the Hugh Howey novels. And, like, I want to see her fucking act. I don't want to see her toting a gun around anymore.
Yeah, I enjoyed her in Dr. Sleep. I thought she got some stuff to chew on there. I liked
You want to talk about hats. You want to fucking talk about hats.
I do. She is rocking a hat in that movie. That is real acting to make it work. I
think she makes the role in that movie where I hated Dr. Sleep personally, but
Dr. Sleep I was actually really enjoying right up until they go to the Overlook Hotel, and then I was like, oh, as a huge The Shining fan, now I feel pandered to. But up until this moment, I for most of it, I was like, this feels kind of like a Kubrick movie, and I'm a dumb idiot who just likes to relive memories of older movies he's watched.
She started in the early 2000s on a Swedish soap opera called Ocean Avenue. She starred in an episode of Wallander, or maybe Wallander. First big American big budget movie was Hercules in 2014 with The Rock. She was kind of on a rocket from there. Mission Impossible Rogue Nation in 2015. In 2016, she was with Meryl Streep and not Hugh Jackman, the other Hugh Grant, in Florence Foster Jenkins. She was on The Girl in The Girl on the Train. 2017, she does Life with Ryan Reynolds and Jake Gyllenhaal. The Snowman with Michael Fassbender. I gave you all the clues. The Greatest Showman with Hugh. 2018, she does Mission Impossible Fallout. 2019, she does Men in Black International, The Kid Who Would Be King. Very underrated movie. I hope people see. Dr. Sleep. And then in 2021, she does this film. So, like, and then she went on to do the Dune movies and another Mission Impossible movie. So, like, she's working and doing big budget fucking things, but just she feels like in the prime of her career and is being wasted on these nothing roles. And she's giving so much of her talent to thankless parts that's not on her. And that's what I'm saying. It highlights how depressing the business is to me right now.
I mean, look, I think in the same way that is depressing you about the business, it's the recognition that it's not just, oh, this script was bad, but oh, this script was bad, and all the people who've been greenlighting all the other bad movies thought this script was amazing. It also took me to a dark place of like, oh man, this industry is... I mean, again, to like I was talking about this last week in Money Monster. To quote Tim Robinson, "This world's so fucked up." I mean, I mean, how do you fix an industry that can't make proper use of Rebecca Ferguson? How do you fix an industry where the gatekeepers read the bloated derivative script for Reminiscence and are like, "This is genius"?
Because it makes them feel smart.
Wow. Yes. That is ultimately, I think, the secret to your script getting traction in Hollywood is if you can make the dumb people reading it feel smart, you are going to open a lot of doors.
And the problem is that the scripts that make the executives feel smart are the ones that make audiences feel dumb.
Yes. What the kind of circular nature of that observation, while quite trenchant, could also fit into a monologue in this movie.
Okay, we just have two more actors I want to mention real quick, and I have a truncated version of their careers. Thandiwe Newton started in 1991 in a film called Flirting, which he said was not exactly the greatest experience. I'll let you go do some research on that if you want to. But she booked one thing after another in the 1990s, with the standouts being Interview with the Vampire in 94, Gridlocked with Tupac in 97, Toni Morrison's Beloved in 1998. She blew up a bit more. She was also in a Mission Impossible 2 in 2000.
Oh.
Then she went on to star with Mark Wahlberg, your buddy.
Let's be careful about the word buddy.
Your favorite person in the world, Mark Wahlberg.
A person I have looked at in a couple movies I liked.
Started with him in The Truth About Charlie in 2002. Stars with Vin Diesel in 2004 with The Chronicles of Riddick.
She had the thankless role in The Truth About Charlie of having to reprise a role previously played by Audrey Hepburn, difficult needle to thread.
In 2004, she's also starring in the Best Picture winner, Crash. She's worked consistently since then. Some of her most notable credits have been The Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith, Eddie Murphy's infamous Norbit, our buddy Guy Ritchie's Rock and Rolla, Oliver Stone's W as Condoleezza Rice. She was in 13 episodes of ER.
Oh, really? She was also in quite a lot of episodes of Westworld, as I recall.
Yeah, well, I was going to get there. Yeah, well. Westworld, for which he won an Emmy. The 2012 disaster movie by Roland Emmerich, and Solo, a Star Wars story.
Ah, interesting.
So,
I forgot she was in
kind of all over the map.
Solo is an interesting case. That is a movie that I very much remember being out, but I have forgotten more and more about with each passing day.
Okay, I saved the most interesting to me for last, which is Cliff Curtis. He plays the corrupted cop, Boothe, I think you said his name was?
Yeah, Cyrus Boothe.
He has been around my entire film watching life, basically. He's a New Zealand actor, and he starts in 1991, but is quickly cast in Jane Campion's 1993 masterpiece, The Piano, which got him a lot of exposure. The 1990s employed him a lot. I'm going to read this quote from IMDb because I feel like I would fuck it up if I had to put it in my own words.
Great.
So this is what's written on IMDb, word for word. Though he's Maori, he's only played a Maori in a couple of movies, including Whale Rider. An amazing movie, which everyone should go see. That's Landon's commentary.
Yeah, beautiful
going back
movie.
Into it.
Liked it.
He's been cast as many other dark-skinned ethnicities, having played, among others, Mexican Americans, Colombians, Arabs, Persians, and Chechens. So that's kind of, I mean, you want to talk about how depressing the industry is. But I want to give some of, like, just how, present he was in cinema through the 90s and 2000s.
Yeah.
1998, he stars in Deep Rising. He stars in 6 Days, 7 Nights with Harrison Ford. In 1999, he's in Three Kings with George Clooney and your buddy Mark Wahlberg.
Oh, boy. We talk about that all the time.
Martin Scorsese's Bringing Out the Dead with Nick Cage. He's in Michael Mann's The Insider.
99 was a huge year for him. He worked with three big directors.
Yes, and he continues to. He goes on to have a role in the movie Blow, Training Day, The Majestic, Collateral Damage. As I mentioned, Whale Rider. Definitely want to make a case for people to go see that. He does a Die Hard. He's in Alex Garland's Sunshine. Does tons of TV. He is in M. Night Shyamalan's terrible Airbender, the last Airbender remake. 24 episodes of Fear the Walking Dead. He does a Statham double feature with The Meg and Hobbs and Shaw. And finally, he's also starring with Rebecca Ferguson in Dr. Sleep right before this film.
Wow, I forgot that he was in Dr. Sleep. Oh, yes, now
and just to highlight this, like, he has won a bunch of New Zealand film and TV awards. Like, he is appreciated in his homeland. I don't feel like, as much as we've cast him in movies here in America, we have not really appreciated the Cliff Curtis of it all.
Sure.
And I think it's time we need to, like, elevate, because he's just one of these talents that I think he's the best for what his role demands. He's one of the best actors in this movie.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he chews the scenery as the villain in this movie. That's for damn sure. Like, I don't think his performance is bad by any means. I think I don't know. It was just getting to a point where it was kind of hard for me to impartially assess performances in this movie because you just have to be delivering thankless, huge blocks of text that mean nothing for so much of it.
That's a very fair assessment.
Yeah.
All right. Where do we go from here?
This is just a comment that I have about the very beginning of the movie to slingshot back that way. As we've mentioned, the first thing you see is this very slow pan towards, or this very slow push in towards the cityscape of Miami. We're getting closer and closer as the voiceover is going. And it's so slow and takes such a long time that I started to think, wait, is this just a production company logo? And
the as we're pushing in, the sun starts to set and the skylight, or the cityscape, the lights of the building start to light up, just like the Miramax logo.
Exactly what I was going to say. And I'm like, wait, this movie isn't just satisfied to steal from, like, 12 better sci-fi movies. It's actively stealing from production company logos. I have another comment. I don't know. Just a general Nick Bannister thing. I mean, I think that ties back into the screenplay as well. I think, part of what makes it hard to get behind Nick Bannister as a character is the fact that he's a voyeur. He's a creepy voyeuristic dude who goes crawling through people's memories. Yes, he has the consent of the people, but also he routinely will, like, at least as we see with Rebecca Ferguson, when he's looking through her memories, he knows where her keys are, but then he sees her, like, crying or something, and he starts to, like, go deeper on that because he wants to know why she's crying. I just want to call this out. In the Blacklist screenplay, within the first 10 minutes of the movie, it starts right off where she shows up and he's going through her memories of her at the nightclub. And there's it's like he already has found the keys, but he's transfixed by her and he's watching her. And she's about to go on for a song. She's like, just a minute. And she goes into the bathroom and sits down on the toilet and is crying. And he's just, like, watching her. So, like, our introduction to the character is he's watching this woman pee while crying, even though he no longer needs to be doing that. I mean, it's like, this is just again, I think this just further underscores how having the Reminiscence machine be sort of part of a bigger mystery plot, having the Reminiscence machine be the thing, and having the movie be about, hey, it's fucked up that you're doing this, how does it affect your relationships with people, and it's a character study about him, okay. But instead the movie just asks us to kind of paper over the invasiveness of what he's doing. And
yeah, which is the more interesting territory to me. Like, if you're right. And this is what I always harp on with these movies, is like what it's implicitly asking us to swallow in order to be on the page of the protagonist. Whereas I would rather have an exploration of that. Like, what is this movie if he's a creepy voyeur who's the only person who could do this, job?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not very marketable, but it's more interesting.
That's not very marketable, but this version of the movie also was not particularly marketable.
Well, I mean, there's an argument there.
I mean, again, I know that, way back at the beginning, I was cheering the fact that this movie lost a huge amount of money, and you were saying, well, we should celebrate that it's an original concept. It's like everybody thought this shit was so great when they read it. Like everybody bought. It brings me some satisfaction that the movie has to be good.
Yeah, I mean, part of the depressing part of this thing for me is like, and why I want to be careful about it is like, Hollywood is going to learn the wrong lesson. It's the Barbie Oppenheimer thing, which is like, okay, Barbie won the Barbenheimer War, the Great War of Barbenheimer in 2022.
It's amazing that Barbie won that war when the other side literally had nuclear weapons. Like, that is a tactical victory for General Barbie.
The lesson that they're learning isn't, let's give more money to unique voices and perspectives to do their take on things, and it's like, oh, Barbie, our product and IP, made a bunch of money, let's greenlight as many Milton Bradley, Tycho bullshit toy lines as we can into movies. Exactly. And so I feel like there's a zero-sum game that Hollywood is playing here, is like, okay, we're putting all of our eggs in this basket of this blacklist script that so many people adored, and it lost not just a little bit of money. I mean, it tanked, and therefore it's too risky of an investment to do anything on non-existing properties moving forward. I feel like that's what's the lessons that's being learned here.
I hope that, yes, probably so. Thankfully, this does not seem to have had a negative impact on Lisa Joy's career. She has continued to make things. The production company she has with her husband, they inked a huge deal with Amazon post this movie that led to the creation of the Fallout show. There was another TV show that they made for
the
Amazon.
One with Chloe Moretz Grace?
Yeah, Chloe Grace Moretz, but we're butchering names all over the place today.
I'm butchering names all over the place.
I had a tough time with Thandiwe Newton's name. But so fortunately they didn't put her in female director jail the way they did with Elaine May after Ishtar, but it's
Patty Jenkins, yeah.
I guess I wish that the takeaway from this was that Hollywood would stop making blacklist scripts. That's kind of what I've come away from. And as someone who tried and failed at screenwriting, you could interpret that as sour grapes. But in looking at a lot of the other scripts on the 2013 blacklist, other notable ones on there, a movie called Hot Summer Nights, which I was very excited for based off of the trailer, and then I watched it, and it was, again, it kind of just frosting the whole way over, of trying to be this cool kind of nostalgia, like summertime love crime drama comedy thing that just had no filler to it at all. Also on the 2013 blacklist, American Sniper, Academy Award nominee for Best Adapted Screenplay. American Sniper, a terrible script and a terrible movie. So I don't know. I guess this might be one of my more bitter episodes, but I guess I'm just coming back to like maybe we shouldn't rely on this kind of groupthink consensus of what a script that a bunch of industry bros liked is a good script. Maybe Maybe I think the solution is that everyone in Hollywood should just come and make all of my scripts, which are definitely great and have no flaws to them whatsoever. And then I would be totally happy and I would have no complaints.
This movie has really just put me in a bad place. All right, listen. There are just a handful of tiny little things I want to mention as last pickup pieces going in. And I think we have to just nail this with talking about the ending, and then we can put in our verdicts and stuff.
Okay.
So the whole idea of this memory machine starts the logic of it starts to break down for me by the end of this. So we talked about the fight with the corrupt cop. He drugs him, brings him back to the memory service shop, puts him in the tank, and starts to extract his memories. Now, one thing that is not explained in this movie is like the extent of Hugh Jackman's powers to extract memories. Like, we see that they can't obviously they go into like a brain damage panic mode if he asks them a leading question that they have no memory of.
It seems like a flaw
right?
in the machine if
Yes.
it's that easy to melt someone's brain.
Yes. But like he seems to be able to guide them wherever he wants. So like he'll start to follow a thread like, okay, when's the last time you saw remember the last time you saw May? And you know, the memory will start to emerge in the crystal beads. And the question I have is, and maybe it's just all chalked up to the serum that they give him, but it's like part truth serum. Does the person in the tank have no willpower to resist showing a memory?
It seems like they have no willpower whatsoever. I mean, they're drugged. They have no control of anything. They seem to be not even like really present. They're just like their mind is putty being kneaded by Nick Bannister.
I usually would never be an advocate for this sort of thing, but I kind of need like the pink elephant explanation of this, which is if I say pink elephant, it's possible for you to not think of a pink elephant.
Oh, I could do it. I'm totally not thinking of a pink elephant right now. I just built different, I guess.
Where, like, if he's asking for a memory, it's impossible for the person, at least under the sedation, to not think about the memory he's asking them to think about.
Yeah.
Like, I need a little bit of explanation as to, like, what's the back and forth here? What kind of agency do each of them have in order to get this? And because there's no explanation there, it starts to unravel even further when we start to get memories of, you know, from the machine, of characters remembering things. Like, he starts to go through all the reminiscence cubes or chips to look back at certain memories. And once he starts to see the setup in the memories be revealed through Booth's memories, through May's memories that he's recorded, one of the things is she's trying to talk to Nick through the memory that Boothe is making. Oh god, it's so hard to explain and so stupid.
Yeah,
time, but okay.
Yeah, your body is seizing up in the tank.
It is. May knows that Nick is going to extract Booth's memories at some point.
Yeah.
So what she does is give Nick a message through Boothe by talking to Boothe in reality as if he's Nick, knowing that Nick will watch Booth's memory of that moment so that she can talk directly to Nick.
Yeah.
It's so stupid,
It's really,
and that's when he enters the beaded curtain and like he steps into the memory.
Next to her.
It's a dumb thing.
Boy, it's dumb.
But then we start to watch these other little moments of the setup, and like what I'm confused is like, wouldn't he have had access, or wouldn't she have had access to those memories to begin with? And if we don't know what kind of willpower she has to restrain her own memories, when he's investigating her at the very beginning, how is she able to not show that she's setting him up?
Yeah,
Does that make any fucking sense?
I mean, barely. I don't know if it makes sense to anyone listening, but
Okay.
yeah, well, look, basically, yeah, I don't know how he doesn't find memories of her, being told by this guy, yo, go seduce the memory machine guy.
Yeah. From moment one.
I don't know. This movie spends so much time trying to explain and justify the logic of its memory machine, and somehow it still doesn't do enough of that.
Yeah, it's so. And so anyway, he goes into this loop of watching her memories and his memories of her, so that he's watching his own memories the way that the guy reliving playing fetch with his dog is. Let's talk about the ending of this and end this episode.
I think I can't even make the spoiler alert joke because we've talked about so much. But Rebecca Ferguson's character dies before he is able to get back to her. It's a heroic sacrifice moment to save a little boy. It's a whole stupid thing. But yes, once he's unmasked the conspiracy and figured everything out, he also Boothe, the guy who winds up killing May, he intentionally has him relive the memory of being burned alive by some enemies of his in the past, like forever. He puts him on a super high loop and basically brain tortures him to death. Our hero, ladies and gentlemen. And the district attorney, he confesses to the crime, and the district attorney, just lets him off the hook because he also helped expose the conspiracy with the property baron.
Yeah, I want to bore into this for a second. The DA lets him off of jail time punishment, but allows him his own style of execution or imprisonment, which is he chooses to go back to the memory service center, get it in his own tube, and replay the memories of himself with May over and over and over and over, literally until he's an old man.
The last scene in this is old man makeup Hugh Jackman floating in his 20-year-old butt water and being cared for by old age makeup Thandiwe Newton and her granddaughter.
Thandiwe, you are better than this. Who's feeding him? How does this work? There's only one memory pod in this warehouse. Is this who's boarded off warehouse for the rest of time in Miami?
Who's paying the rent? B, boy, yeah. I hope that the sea level doesn't continue rising in the street that is already flooding 20 years before. This is not
this. This ending is like what you would test with focus groups, and them going, that ending fucking sucks. Go reshoot the ending. But not it being COVID, them not having a focus group to do this with, ends with this completely asinine conclusion.
And and the script ends with it too. At least the script has the good sense to include some notion about or some notes about, oh, he's got a feeding tube or something. But here he doesn't. It really seems like Thandiwe Newton, this poor woman, has to spend the next 20 years just spoon-feeding applesauce to her former boss and changing his diapers in there or whatever. How
exactly is it diapers? Is there some sort of tube system that they didn't extracts it from the tank?
They didn't want to show the catheter.
Do they change the water?
Also,
how does he not prune?
His body
is he taken out at any point? What does the water even do for the memory thing?
I don't know.
Why do they have to be in a water tube?
Why are they in a water tube? What is it? Everybody saw Altered States in 1976, and ever since it's if you're doing brain shit, you have to be floating. Stranger Things doing it. This movie doing it. Probably a million other movies for some reason I can only think of. But I promise it happens a lot, even though I can't call to mind other examples. I should also say, he's been in this tank for 20 years, supposedly, at the end of the movie. His body still looks pretty good. He does not look like a man who has not used any of his muscles for 2 decades.
Not emaciated, even a little bit. Not a single bed sore in sight.
Much in the same way that Thandiwe Newton, when she is a hardcore alcoholic, looks beautiful and ravishing and, clear, moisturized, unblemished skin.
So the rest of this, I thought, oh my god, okay, they're gonna fade out on this stupid old man makeup and a dumb smile on his face, and that's that. Nope.
Nope.
There's still like 5 fucking minutes of going back
Return
and
of the King.
re-showing us the memories he's watching, and we have to watch yet again not only all of the scenes that we've already seen of him and Rebecca Ferguson together, but we have to re-listen to not even new VO, but the exact VO that opened the movie, word for word, point for point, for 5 minutes.
To quote Mike Nelson, when a movie starts showing you parts of itself, you know you're in trouble.
Or that later Mystery Science Theater movie where it's like, oh no, the movie's starting over again.
Exactly.
So once it fucking finishes going through that, I'm like, just show me the title card. Just show me directed by Lisa Joy. I just want to get this fucking shit over with. I don't want any more codas. I don't care what happens to any more of these characters. Just get me out of here. We didn't even talk about the incestuous Baron wife and son thing. Oh my god, how do we miss that?
It would require so much explaining, and you guys don't care, and we don't care, and the audiences didn't care.
I'm waiting and wait. So like we see all, and he's like, start it in the middle is the final line.
And end the story in the middle.
End the story in the middle, and then it dissolves to black, and I'm like, I'm waiting for that title card because I'm like, I just want this to be over with.
But it's,
and I'm like, I have to watch it for every morsel. I got to give these listeners what they want.
Not over yet. Ain't over.
They like even extend the black scene from the final image to the title card like 6 times longer than it needs to be.
You were looking at just a completely black screen and hearing just like one long note resolving on the score for like, it feels like 10 to 15 seconds. Like man, which is kind of upsetting because this movie that is so kind of like 1 inch deep is it just that really in the editing room they were like, let's give them a lot of time to sit with this. Their minds have been so completely blown by this movie that they need a few seconds before they can compose themselves enough to read the names of the people who made the movie. Give them some space.
The end of this movie is just proves how slipshod and unintelligible the rest of this movie is because it doesn't know how to fucking end.
Yeah.
It's like, have you ever been in a meeting or a presentation and a speaker has tried to like make their point and doesn't quite do it, so they keep trying to make their point in different ways, but there isn't much real substance to what they're saying, and so they keep like talking, hoping that they find like a satisfying or memorable conclusion that will make their point salient, but everyone just wants it to end so that they can go take solace in the leftover Chinese food that they brought to work for that day.
I mean, I've recorded plenty of podcasts where that happens. I've also noticed it
Are
in
you
meetings.
Pointing a finger at me?
I'm pointing a finger at both of us, sir.
That's what the end of this movie's like. It's just like, I experienced it in a lot of conversations here in the Midwest where, like, you've made your point and you're still talking.
Yeah.
And you're still going and we're not done. And you said that, you're going to say it again. And now you're done.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah. David Byrne, you're talking a lot, but you're not saying anything.
You're talking a lot and saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Over and over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah. You know. But this movie, it didn't stop making sense. It never made sense. It needed to start making sense.
Seriously. All right, let's end this thing. Let's ask, why, Truman, do you think this film was forgotten?
This movie was forgotten because it is so boring that it's difficult to pay attention to it long enough for it to make an impression. The basic rhythm of this movie is a long scene where 2 characters do cryptic, overwritten monologues back and forth, followed by a few, like, kind of long establishing shots of Hugh Jackman moping around flooded Miami with long, kind of winsome, convoluted voiceover full of metaphors, followed by another long scene with metaphors back and forth between 2 characters, and it's that for 2 hours. And the thing is that sometimes, but not often, these monologues include major, important plot points, but if you've been trained, your mind is like, this is bullshit, I'm not paying attention to this, I'm not listening, so you will have drifted away, and then you miss important context for the next scene and the next location you're in. So inevitably, by the end of the movie, even if you've been watching it very carefully and taking notes and trying to pay attention like we do, you'll wind up feeling just sort of confused and adrift and unsatisfied. So, I mean, I think that's just, it just doesn't sink in enough to form a memory, because everything about both the look of it and the sound of it is telling your brain, this doesn't matter, disregard this.
Yeah. You've tried melatonin.
Mm-hmm.
You've tried microdosing. Lisa Joy has created the ultimate turn your brain off, fall asleep movie.
I mean, look, if you just submerge yourself in a tank of butt water and put this movie on, and you will have the deepest sleep of your life. Why do you think it was forgotten?
Yes. I think COVID was a little bit of a factor here, but the movie itself has nothing to grasp onto. This is not a fun, bad movie.
No.
This is just a terrible, terrible film that I wish that I could will out of my memory. I will say that, like, if this movie had come out 25 years earlier, maybe it would have made, like, a little bit of an impact.
Sure, because people would be like, wow, the special effects are amazing. All we have are models.
That said, Catherine Bigelow's Strange Days
Yeah.
didn't make that huge of an impact, and it's dealing with very similar stuff.
And it's a much better movie than this.
That movie rocks.
Yeah.
I love that movie.
Yeah.
Despite the forced romance between Ralph Fiennes and Angela Bassett.
Yeah,
anyway,
didn't need to happen.
So 25 years ago, maybe it would have had an impact. In 2021, this just feels trite. In 2024, it's fucking unbearable.
Yep. I didn't enjoy it. So, Landon, do we want to remember the movie or not? I wonder.
I say let's leave it forgotten. No further commentary. Let's just use one of our memory nukes and vaporize it.
Yeah, the only way to be sure. Yeah, can we forget this movie harder? Like, society did not forget this movie enough.
We live in a society, and this movie made me not want to.
Yes, exactly. This was the only thing. Everything else in society, A-okay. Well...
All right, well, I guess that wraps up our discussion of Reminiscence for this week, if anyone is still listening. Listen, before we go, want to just promote our Patreon. You can vote for these movies on our Discord if you join our Patreon for as little as $1 a month. We have a robust discussion over on Discord for movie guesses for what's going to come out next, discussions of the movies, point by point. People are scheduling watch parties.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
It is.
So you can get access to our Discord. Again, $1 a month. That's patreon.com/gruntworkpod, which is short for Gruntwork Podcasts. That's the network that we are on.
I think they could guess that. I think our listeners are pretty smart. I think they know.
I just wanted to highlight that because I'd love to know. People are voting on whether or not they want to, and I think we're going to tally up at the end of the season which movies our listeners have decided to remember versus what we've decided to remember.
And look, and I think that's super cool, and I encourage people to do it. And I'm also going to tell you right now, if you go on there and you vote to remember Reminiscence, I'm going to cyberbully you, and it's not okay, and that's probably not a great promotion, but that's just the kind of podcast you're listening to right now.
All right, well, that's all I've got. So for Truman Caps, I've been Landon Solano.
And for Landon Solano, I've been Truman Caps.
We'll see you next week, folks. Whoa!
Movie Memory Machine is part of the Gruntwork Podcast Network. Join our Patreon at patreon.com/gruntworkpodcast to keep the machine running. Theme song by Porky's Groove Machine. Rate us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. For more information on today's show, visit MovieMemoryMachine.com.